back to another episode of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. I'm your host. My name is Brian Vitale. Joining me, we have Josh Torres.
Hi.
Mikhail Madnani.
Blob.
Adam Vitale.
Hi.
James Glazio.
Yellow.
And Chow Minwoo.
Odd.
And the blob was a little bit of an inside joke before we started recording. We were just doing a mic check saying blob. So Mikhail is now blob. Thank you for joining us. But yeah, we're doing this is going to be more of a standard episode of the Tetracast. Of course, throughout the month of June, it's been very busy. Obviously, last week was the big follow-up from Summer Games Fest with Adam, James, and Josh returning from their trip to LA. We do have a few more things from that visit to wrap up on this episode. A few things that were embargoed that we're now free to talk about. If you've been following the site at all, a final set of previews and interviews have gone up on the site. We've shared them on social media. So we'll do one final wrap up of Summer Games Fest on this episode. Of course, we have some games to talk about. The main headline game for this week we're going to be talking about is Raidou Remastered and the Mystery of the Soulless Army. And we have a lot of updates for games in Summer Games Fest, like Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Alliance, and Legend of Heroes Trails Beyond the Horizon. That was before Summer Games Fest. But some upcoming games that have some pretty significant updates that we want to make sure we get those news laid out in terms of release dates, release windows, things like that. And then we have a few other reviews up on the site, and we look ahead at the upcoming summer months for upcoming releases, as well as some interesting sales numbers, some of which we were intended to be released, and some of which was a little bit of a surprise. So we'll kind of go into there in the back half of the podcast. So before starting out, I guess Raidou Remastered is what we're going to be opening up with. Before saying anything else, I'll say that Cullen Black did the review for us up on the site, but he's not on the podcast today. However, I have also played Raidou Remastered, so I will be able to speak to it, not on his behalf, but just as a person who's played the game and be able to give it a voice for the podcast. But who here has played the original Raidou Kuzunoha 1 on the PS2?
I have.
I believe Adam's played it as well, but no one else has played 1 or the remaster yet?
I played the 78 hours of the remaster.
I've played a bit of the remaster, quite a bit actually. But yeah.
Oh right, because you did one of your impressions pieces up on the site for how it runs on the different hardware. So we'll start out with that. We'll have a few other small games to talk about, and then we'll go into the updates. No big headline news this week, but a lot of updates for things out of Summer Games Fest, games that were previously announced, but we didn't have all the details, things like that. So, of course, Raidou Remastered, The Mystery of the Soulless Army, just released in the last week. It is a remake of, I should have brought this wiki page up, Devil Summer, Raidou Kuzunoha, and, damn it, I'm trying to remember the full subtitle of that one.
Yeah, the first Raidou game on PS2. I think it's very similar to it. I know Soulless Army was in it.
Raidou Kuzunoha versus the Soulless Army. So Devil Summoner, Raidou Kuzunoha versus Soulless Army, remastered under the title The Mystery of the Soulless Army. So I am coming to this game as a brand new, fresh perspective. And then Josh, of course, is coming to this game being able to make that comparison between the original release and the remastered release. And to start out, not that it really matters, in terms of remaster remake, it seems like in a lot of ways this game is a remake. It incorporates a brand new battle system. It's got a brand new art style. I was reading Cullen's review, and I guess the maps, the environments are all redone. Like they're just completely different. I don't have that perspective fresh. So for me, this is just a brand new game that I'm experiencing, though I have the understanding that it originally released as a PS2 game. So in terms of quality of life, in terms of what things were not originally present in this game but have been sort of backported from the second game or other Atlas titles, I can kind of glean or infer, but I don't really know for sure what was present originally and what is kind of brand new to the remake. So to start out, this game is not directly related to this is based on my understanding. This game is not directly related to SMT. It's not directly related to Persona in terms of it's a standalone story. It takes place in about a 1930s Japan, or so to speak. Of course, it has a lot of the familiar demons from Shin Megami Tensei, and in fact, I believe it's much larger roster than was originally present and available in the game. Demon Fusion is kind of the big central progression gameplay component, like so many of these games. But in terms of the actual gameplay, it's stylized a fair bit differently. It's an action RPG, single player game, of course, where you can summon demons to act as on your side in basically as your party, so to speak. Two allied demons that you can switch out at any time in battle, plus the player character Raidou Kuzunoha the 14th. So uh, this game, it's to kind of give my impressions of it, having played about 35 hours of it since it or before it released, is that it's perfectly adequate. And I mean that like with positive connotation. Like this game is a pretty simple game in terms of its complexity, in terms of what it's trying to do, in terms of its gameplay, in terms of its like progression systems for an RPG. It's pretty thin, but, like, not in necessarily a bad way. I think about, like, Shin Megami Tensei 5, though I never played Vengeance, about, like, all the systems that it had going on, all the different maps. It was the first Shin Megami Tensei game to feature, like, an open-ish world map, things like that. Where this is just chapter by chapter, linear storytelling. The game opens up with Raidou Kuzunoha basically undergoing the trials of becoming a demon summoner. Is it demon summoner or devil summoner? Devil summoner.
Devil Summon.
Mhm. So so that's basically like the tutorial of the game. And then interestingly, and this is kind of the vibe that you get just from the media around the game, is that not only are you a devil summoner, you work for a detective agency, and it's got like this noir-ish set environment in terms of taking place in the early 1900s. You literally work for the Narumi Detective Agency, and a lot of the things around the game are all framed around the idea of solving mysteries and taking cases. Like it actually calls like your side quest log your case files. And then like you actually have a log of your records in terms of like your objectives going chapter by chapter. And when I first started the game, I did not know like that's the juxtaposition of two very like different things, kind of like this real world analog of mystery. Sorry, clearing my throat. Mystery, crime solving, investigating, things like that. And then you have the fantastical side with your, your demon summoning, the fact that you wield the katana with elemental attributes and things like that, and pairing those two things together to tell a story. So I think that's where this game kind of shines in terms of being just a very unique experience and a very unique vibe. So I don't know if that's kind of like what your impression of the game, both as it originally released in PS2 versus the remaster, or just your initial thoughts booting up the game, revisiting it for the first time probably in several years.
Yeah, the original Raidou on PS2, the first game, is I was not exactly my favorite. Like, it's definitely one of the weakest games in my opinion. When we're thinking about Mega 10 series spin-offs, and it was very much as I always talk. The way I phrased my impressions of that game is like it felt a very incomplete game. The first game on the PS2 felt like a prototype. It was sort of their first like big shot at like, hey, let's take this battle system into an action setting. Let's get away from turn based and see how it goes. And it was it was very novel for its time in terms of like, yes, the big uh, setting shift, being more into the 1930s period, and this Taisho period in Japan, and revisiting the Devil Summoner series because it existed before this game, but in a completely brand new context, in a book with a completely brand new main character, and like it was one of the biggest strengths of the original game on the PS2 was just that novelty of, hey, you have an action battle system and the atmosphere around it, like the way that you're contextualizing this series, which when you think about like the older Shin Megami Tensei games, it's very cyberpunk, especially like SMT 1 and 2 era. Obviously, SMT 3 with Nocturne was more post-apocalyptic ruin setting, but this is like, way different from those in that like almost parent SMT series um overhead. So when I booted up Raidou Remastered, I'm like, it's been a long time since I played the original. I stopped, I still remember parts about it, but the big thing with this game and the way that Atlas has marketed this game, it's really it throws a lot of people off as for returning players because this is not like a quote unquote remaster in the way as we know it traditionally, right? Where it's like, oh, they touched up some parts of the original game. It's like, no, this feels like a full remake of the game from the ground up, and it very much is. Like you were mentioning earlier with like the environments, even that aspect of it, like these are like full 3D environments. This time they're not like pre-rendered background scenes. Even though you still have that isometric fixed camera angle as you're navigating, the way that like the background is, you can actually like interact with it in ways that you couldn't in the original. Um, and the big thing for returning players in this game right from the get-go is the battle system. The battle system is just remade from the ground up. It takes a lot of improvements from the second game, the second Raidou game on PS2, like having two demons in battle, for example. In the original, you only had one, and that felt very like it was novel in the sense like, hey, cool, like you have like a full 3D demon model like with you in battle at that time on the PS2. Like that felt really cool to interact with because you only interacted with them in that like turn-based battle system setting. But now we're so far away from that, and it's been a long time since then. And having two demons in battle from the original really helps keep the battle flowing. And also the way that you actually just what Raidou does in battle. In the original, Raidou's actions were very basic. You had a basic like melee string, and then you can fire gunshots like one at a time. And in the original, you had to buy bullets for your gun. And when you think about this game, it's like, oh, you hold down that aiming button, you can fire it like a shotgun almost with your pistol because you're aiming multiple bullets at once to shoot out to stun enemies like faster enemies. While in the original, like each bullet counted, it's like, oh, it's like bullets I have to like we'll have to use some of my money to restock later on if I use too much on that.
Also, in the original version, we might have mentioned this before, but I'll reiterate it because it's a
Yeah.
pretty big difference. Is that the camera in battle was stuck in
Yes.
like imagine
Fixed camera.
like a camera in the corner of the room that could maybe like rotate left and right a little bit, but that was it.
Yeah.
Like it was a single viewpoint, vantage point in battle.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And then
This game
and
still
then
does that for like the environments, but not in battle. In battle, it's free.
yeah. And all the new mechanics in Raidou Remastered are obviously all new. You have, the summoner skills. You have the different, the whole sword crafting system. Like that's all brand new. Like you can use, you earn mats, and then you can kind of spec down these different weapon trees of like, hey, you can turn your heavy attack string into a sword or a spear or an axe, and they have stat bonuses to them. Um, all the like the mechanic where you could press square and X at the same time to do a bunch of damage if like you perfect dodge and the big ultimate like spirit slash attack that it's like basically a super in battle. That's all brand new. They did it's basically unrecognizable if you're trying to compare the two. It's just it's its own new brand new game in terms of like the way that you're playing it and the way that you're interfacing with it. um, but there are still things like from the original, like the loyalty system of your demons, where you get their loyalty up, that allows them to, give you something in return, and they have like benefits when you're fusing these them in fusion. Like after you fuse them, they'll give you a letter, and you might get like a nice mat or item out of it. Um, and so forth. Though I feel like accumulating loyalty in this game takes way faster than the original. Another like, but another like small quality of life enhancement thing in this game also is like when you're recruiting demons, um, you can hold that you have the option to just hold down the button instead of like mashing your life like like your life depends on it like in the original. Um, and in the original, I think there was like even like a thing where you had to like weaken them first and then start doing that. While in this one, if you're just it doesn't matter what their health is as long as you have the same level or over it, um, you can just start recruiting them right. Just things like that. It's just there's so many mechanical uh differences and enhancements from the original that like ultimately they're all like good in terms of like making the game more enjoyable. Because if they were to remaster the game as we know it, it's just like touching up the original game, just with some visual tweaks here and there, I think this game would be a much tougher sell, especially at its price point. Like I remember when they first announced it without knowing what this like all these enhancements from the get go. I was like, I don't know if you can sell this game on its own as is. You'd have to do a lot of work because that original game on the PS2 is it has its charm, but it is a rough game to try and play, especially in today's standards
There are
and
certain things that
expectations.
they added that, or I presume that they added. So obviously, I was reading Cullen's review, who talks about some of the comparisons between the original and the remaster. I was actually reading some like old game facts guides, game FAQs, for just like side quests and things like that. Uh, There's certain things that I almost take for granted because I am not like I've played a handful of SMT games, but almost all on the recent end, like SMT5, uh, Persona 4, not Persona 5 yet. And, like, things like the fact that you can do reverse search in the compendium,
Right.
where you can just
Yeah.
say, like, "Hey, show me all the demons I can make based on who's on my roster and who's in my compendium." That quality of life, I don't think I would ever, like, besmirch. Like, it's just so handy to have to say, like, "Oh, you've already got, um, a certain demon, and then you've already registered this other demon, and together, if you had them both, you could fuse new demon, rather than it being so trial and error. There are also things that I just make a guess or an inference. Like as far as I can tell, when you go to recruit a demon, as long as you are a high enough level, they cannot turn you down.
Yeah.
I
Pretty
like
much.
I'm guessing in the original they can turn you down. It feels like that's something that used to be a
It it it
like an
it's it it was a pain in the ass because you had to mash the circle, and it was, like, pretty demanding. Like, if you're on par with
yeah.
a higher level demon, like, you're let's say you're trying to recruit a level 32 demon and you're level 32, you have to mash the fuck out of your button really fast and hard to get it because it was, like it had, like, this weird system where, like, it would that mini game of button mashing would get tougher the higher level the demon was in the original, if I remember correctly, and that was really annoying on top of weakening that. There was a lot of rough stuff from the original, but yes, you have the right idea. Um,
And then
And now you can just
also
hold the button.
yeah.
yeah,
Sorry,
it's
go
like an accessibility change. No, no worries. I was
Yeah.
gonna say like the case files, basically, I guess a lot of those side quests existed in the original game, but they were just kind of like hidden, or not, I don't
Mhm.
know if hidden's the right word.
You
You
kind of
just had to
found
find
them.
them.
Yeah.
You had to talk to people. But now it's, and I don't know if I actually like this as much. Like the compendium stuff, the reverse search, things like that. I think that's really good quality of life, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But for the case files, now it's just kind of like here's side quest 1, here's side quest 2, here's side quest 3, and it's just very like bang bang bang. There's no
Yeah.
ambiguity. Here's
The,
all the
the,
side quests,
there's not really any
and like
hidden
oh
quests or so to speak, like in the original where you kind of felt like you discovered a quest. This one, like it kind of
yeah
lists all that out for you, and even like instructions, like even if there'll be like a case file that like I know this is one of Cullen's biggest things about the game, but like like in the original, there was really little checkpointing on like where you go. Like people would tell you where to go, but it was up to you to kind of find out where, like how you get there, so to speak. While this has objective markers for for like especially the main story, like everything on where you go next, instead of like kind of talking to people and from the dialogue you find out where you go next. But even in the case files, like there'll be some side quests where it might not have a quest marker, but if you go to the case file description on it, it'll tell you step by step like what you have to do in that case file. Like there's one where you have to like get like ice cream from somewhere, it'll tell you exactly which places you need to get like this sweet thing from and what you do with this ice cream after you get it. When when the original you're like, where the fuck do I put this ice cream? um and
I did
and
appreciate that a little bit more because at least it didn't have a waypoint and you actually had to read like but it does
yeah,
still give it away. It's like you can get ice cream from this shop and you just pull
yeah.
up a map and like, "Oh, there it is." Like it's not waypointed, it's one step removed and it's still kind of like, "Oh,
Yeah,
okay, I
you
guess I'll
do
do
like,
that."
yeah, I guess that like at least it's trying to make people at least read the quest description on what you do instead of going to an NPC in the game. I get it.
Yeah.
Other big things are like the how robust the fast travel is in this game. The express streetcars didn't exist in the original, so you had to every time you wanted to go to another location, you have to manually go out of the town to the world map and then use the streetcar to go to the next place. There's no like fast travel. Just pull up a menu with like L1 and then choose the location, and it'll automatically like warp you there. And if there's like if there's any like money needed to use the streetcar, it'll automatically expend it for you. So like so that was like, a big thing back then where like, getting from place to place and trying to find out where you go would be tedious because you didn't have this fast travel, instant fast travel like that we do here. In this game. It's just a lot of stuff. Like the quick save, for example, like you can just save anywhere in this game and it's just you pop up a mini menu, pop quick save, easy, done. Now you gotta go on. Stuff like
A
that.
quick save, I could easily see as like, yeah, of course they added that. That seems very, contemporary. And in hindsight, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess it does make sense that the first couple times you have to travel, you have to go to the streetcar, but then you just press the shoulder button on a controller and you pull up your menu. Luckily, and I do appreciate this, they don't let you fast travel from everywhere. If you're in the middle of a trial dungeon or the dark realm, you can't just fast travel out of it. You got to find the escape. And that's one of those things where I'm like, I'm actually glad they didn't just say, oh, you can just blink out at a moment's notice, regardless of where you are. It's like, no, you gotta actually leave. And then once you're back on the world map, you can, or like the regular realm, you can fast travel out. But they did put at least a few breaks on it
Yeah.
to at least inconvenience you a little bit and say like, hey, you're in the dark world. You got to get out of here normally before we'll let you fast travel out.
And
Yeah.
and also just like the demon collecting feature of the game is like way more robust now in terms of like there's almost like no restriction on like skill inheritance. For example, if there's a demon that's like weak to fire, it can still inherit a fire skill. While
Mhm.
in other SMT or Mega 10 entries, like usually some have like an arbitrary restriction of like, hey, because you're weak to this element, you cannot inherit this element for several
Mhm.
tiles. On this one, it just breaks off those chains. Like you can fucking pretty much inherit whatever the fuck you want, as far as I've played.
Yeah,
And also
I was just
like
agreeing with you.
skill slot. Yeah, yeah. And then the skill slots, for example, like just opening up all eight of those like from the get go, instead of like having to that was like usually tied to like higher level stuff in the game. Um, so yeah, I mean it's very much it is relatively more enjoyable, but it does have a lot of modern tendencies of like for better or for worse. There is a lot of convenience to the players in that regard. Whether and it all depends on like whether you uh, think that like they should have eased up more on the game on these enhancements, and how, when you think about like the friction of the original, which is I don't think that was like the thing that you would go to Raidou 1 on PS1 on PS2 for. You don't go there and be like, yeah, I'm playing this game because I really like having no instant fast travel, and I really like the almost the simulation aspect of getting out of town to go use the streetcar to go to the next town over to get to this location. It's like, it's some give, some take on that
The original
regard.
game also was random encounters, and there were
Right.
a lot of
Yes.
them. A lot.
Yeah.
I was
It
gonna bring
had, it
something up
had a
related
high.
to that. Is that now all the enemies that are on the field actually show up on the field. And here's one way where the game I think is almost too easy. I say that though, you do unlock like a super hard mode for New Game Plus. So if you want the challenge, it's there. But I was playing it on the normal difficulty. I forget what it's called. Just standard. And whenever there's an enemy on the field that your character is something like 10 levels higher than, or at some threshold, you can instantly clear them by sending your demon to it. So there's a small mechanic where if you send your demon, you can get a little bit of a pre-battle buff that's very, very well worn. And if you're high enough, you instantly defeat them. Also not a new concept. But the thing is that in this game, if you ever feel like you need to like grind out some money, some items, some levels, some loyalty at whatever point, you can eventually just find a place where the enemies spawn, run in a circle. They'll be slightly lower level than you. Smash the X button on the Xbox controller, I believe, instantly defeat the enemies, get EXP and money, reload the map, and just keep doing that over and over again. Where it's like, this sure is convenient.
I did this in Mementos in Persona 5 Royal. Just run over enemies with the Morgana car.
Yeah, so I never felt like I was under leveled. I always felt like I had plenty of EXP. It's one of those things where I feel like a hypocrite, or I'm talking out both sides of my mouth. I'm like, this is too easy, but also I'm going to exploit it because it's there, sort of thing. Where it's like, I don't know what's good for me, but I'm going to do this because I just want some money and I don't want to actually fight.
That's just efficient.
It's just being maximum efficiency gamer nerd. So I do want to talk about a little bit about where the game I think falls short, because Cullen rated this a 7, I believe, though his review is largely positive. And that's kind of how I feel as well. It's like, I enjoy the game for what it is, but I'm also like cognizant of what it's not. And it's a little bit disappointing. So I'm coming in from a fresh perspective. At the very beginning of the game, in the first like couple chapters, you are introduced to a lot of things that seem very like interesting concept on paper. And I was like, all right, I'm fresh baby-faced Raidou fan coming to boot up this game. You come out of a detective agency. Narumi, he's one of the important NPCs of the game, and he says something like, "If you ever get stuck, come back here." And I'm like, "Oh, so this game's going to actually have some like sleuthing, some like figuring things out." And then when you like in the first couple chapters, you learn about like some demon abilities where they can like read characters' mind, or they can fly up to high places to like get to where you can't normally access. There's certain demon abilities called ignite and cool down, I believe, in the sense of you can kind of like rile an NPC up on the map, or you can get them to calm down and give you more information. And you have, of course, like your objectives written in like your case files and stuff in your menu. So I'm like, oh, okay, like I'm actually going to have to talk to people, learn a few things, deduce something. And in chapters 1 and 2, you do that, though it's very like guardrailed. It's very like, hold your hand. We'll show you how this works. And I was kind of just thinking about like, oh, okay, but this will open up later, right? Unfortunately, it just never really does. It kind of all takes a back seat. Eventually, it's very much just like linear dungeon fighting. Not really dungeons. The game doesn't really have dungeons until like the very end. It's just like you go to a place, you fight the demons there, you progress a linear story, you fight a boss. You go to the next place, you fight the demons there, you progress a linear story, and you fight a boss. And the case files don't really make up for it either, because, like we said, they're very signposted. They're very much go to the marker, or in the rare case, read the description, go to where it tells you to go, do the thing. And some of these case files are very short, like less than 5 minutes. Like, go to this place, fight a single little void of a single battle against enemies, and then you're done. And that's kind of where I was most disappointed, is that the first two chapters kind of tee up, and maybe it's like a misplaced expectation, but the first two chapters kind of tee up this concept of a game that I thought would be really neat to have, like this sleuthing detective, not all based around battles and leveling up demons. But then it just kind of falls away. And unfortunately, the rest of the game, I just don't think really makes up for it. And Colin, in his review, talked about the battles kind of end up being a little bit flat. Like, you progress a little bit, you unlock sword crafting, you get some different active abilities as you build swords. You kind of get a passive loadout as well, and those loadouts are like, you increase your mag gain as you attack with your combo above 25, or things like that. But eventually you just kind of like, you have a weapon that you like, you have a build that you like, and you're just kind of going through the motions. At least that's where I found myself at. And for active abilities, you can only ever slot 3. You can change them out, but you can only have 3 attached to your quick access, like shortcuts. So whenever you got a new like weapon ability, I'm like, well, I've already got 3 that I like, so I'm just gonna stick with these. And not as bad, because passives you end up getting like 7 or 8. And passives, of course, are just less interesting inherently. But like when you unlock those, at least those I felt like, okay, I can like decide how I want to slot this into my build here. But eventually the combat just got kind of flat. It never really ramped up that detective sleuthing aspect of it. So in terms of a gameplay front, I did feel like it kind of lost steam after about the 10-hour mark or so. Didn't get bad. It just kind of said like, oh, this is all it is. It's not bad. It's just very fine. Lowercase. It's fine. But it didn't surprise me. It didn't blow my mind. It didn't really like do anything super exciting. It was just okay. That's kind of
Yeah.
where I like. That's
Yeah.
where I kind of say like I agree with the 7 out of 10 kind of,
Mhm.
if you had to put a number to it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It's like, because I already know what to expect. So I knew it wasn't going to be that detective heavy. It's very much a story based, railroaded kind of deal. The second one does make interesting enhancements to that because you do have an alignment system in the second one. You do have like law, neutral, and chaos in the second
Mm.
game. So if they do remaster slash remake that one, how they'll adopt that system into that, because that's a pretty central part of that game. And that's why like the second Raidou game is like one of my favorite Mega 10 games ever. Like in terms of like just how much it improved from the original and kind of almost fully realizing like this marriage of like SMT's aspects with like a detective action sort of it's
Mhm.
one of my favorite games in that series. So I'm very, I'm very maybe it's like rose tinted glasses because it's been so long since I replayed it, but I still love the hell out of that game. Um, but like yeah, this game is very weird, especially like when you mentioned like the new battle mechanics. Like since it's so very fast paced and active now with your light attacks, building up your mag and then you build up mag as like your main central mana meter for your demons to whenever your demons use skills, they use your mag. So everyone has a shared pool of this mag that you manage, and then your triangle is your heavy attack string, and you use that for like if you want to use deal damage as Raidou, and that'll be, and what the heavy attacks are is dictated by like this type of sword that you wield, because the sword alchemy can branch off to your katana tree, spear tree, and axe tree, and then all those three have different heavy attack strings. So it's up to really preference on what stats you wanna um uh value, but it's also
Mhm.
worth it to uh craft different swords and different trees, because some of them have passives, and those passives are universal. So let's say I go down the katana tree, and then its second weapon has a passive, and but my main weapon is the katana and the axe tree. That I can still use that passive that I got from like this the katana tree into my quote unquote build. So it's still worth it to still craft different weapons with trees if they have actives. I think even actives you can use universally if I
Yeah, you
remember
can.
correctly. So it's still worth it on that. It's just all preference on like what you want your attack string to be at your as your um on your heavy attack. So you kind of have like a weird, almost like balancing act, because like you can technically play Raid as a one man army, but it's like it's very inefficient. It takes a lot of time. Like in my opinion, and rings true for the original as well. Like since your demons will spam the fuck out of their abilities that enemies are weak to. So obviously, it's very basic SMT strategies like, hey, deploy demons that are strong against the enemy and have skills that the enemy is weak to. In this game, it's kind of amplified to like even more so than the turn-based Mega 10 games, because you don't have to worry about um, different mana pools and a turn order. Um, they will continue to spam the fuck out of their abilities that enemies are weak to, as long as you have the mag to do it. So, like in a way, like just spamming light attacks to be as a battery for your demons is a legit strategy. Like you could just be your main character can just be a battery for your demons to just go all out and maintain buffs and spam their skills. As long as you are able to maintain your mag bar, you're good to go. And for normal enemies, obviously when you hit a weakness in the sense of the action setting, it'll like freeze them in place, and they'll have like a stun meter. That like when they're in the stun state, all attacks that come towards them is all critical hits for a limited amount of time. So that's like a good time to like spam your heavy attacks, because all your heavy attacks will be crits. Or if you need to like fill up mag quickly, this is also a good time to like fill up mag quickly, because you get more mag back when you do light attacks when in the stun state. It just depends on how well you're managing your mag bar. And then for bosses and bigger enemies, like elite enemies, they have like this circle resistance meter to their weakness. So every time you hit their weakness element, that circular bar will go down, and when it goes down, that's when they go into the stun state, and that's when you decide, hey, let's go all out during the stun state and so forth. So there is an interesting dichotomy and chemistry in Raidou's action combat approach when it's trying to translate SMT mechanics into it in a really goofy but amusing manner. But it becomes a well-oiled engine. So in this game in particular, like you're constructing pretty much a well-oiled engine um, based on like demons that you like and demons that will just like kind of do everything for you while you just become like a living battery for your demons to go all out on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's basically in some cases their damage output. I'm sure it depends on your exact build, but their damage output can exceed Raidou's by far. So instead of you trying to position yourself in the best exact possible spot and using your heavy attacks and upping your strength stat as far as you can and putting all your passives into dealing damage, like you said, the mag meter is shared. And I know you already said all this. I'm just kind of re-emphasizing it. The mag meter, which is basically like your MP, TP, whatever you want to call it, is shared. And your normal attacks will refresh that. So if you just say, okay, demons, you know what to do. I'm just going to make sure this meter stays topped off so they can do what they need to do. I did that for a few bosses as well. Though I didn't build my whole like passives around generating mags, so I do wonder like how efficient it could be made to set your whole party set up that way. But yeah, it does kind of become a well-oiled machine. There's not a ton of variety in terms of like once you kind of know what works, you just kind of end up repeating that a whole bunch. And also just this is to my detriment because I kind of asked for this in a way. Um, I ended up being just kind of over leveled throughout the game. So that obviously just kind of hurt. I just like didn't have to be careful. Could have played it on the harder difficulty, but I was on normal, things like
It's
that.
difficult like
But
to like resist that urge because like it doesn't SMT games in general because you want to be at a higher level to get more demons that like are look cool that are higher level that your
yeah.
level, you're restricted by your level and access to those cooler higher level demons. You're just like, man, I want that fucking demon car, man, that demon automobile. I'm gonna level myself up until I can get the demon automobile.
Was that demon car invented for this game? Feels like
Yes.
it could have been because
Yes.
that's
Absolutely.
basically the whole story of chapter 2. I guess we could talk about a little bit more about story here. Obviously, we won't go into all the details, but I will say I'll say the premise and then I'll say my impressions about where the story goes. So yes, there's a demon car in chapter 2. But in chapter 1, you're taking on a case. Your client is this high school girl named Kaya, and she inexplicably asks the detective agency in Raidou to please kill her before she turns 16. And you're like, what the fuck? Why would someone ask for this? But then she is basically kidnapped by demon hubid hybrid sort of things. You're not quite sure what they are, called red capes. And the red capes apparently have been a little bit of an urban legend slash myth slash whatever you want to call it for a while now. People have reported seeing them over. They don't. People have all their own opinions on who the Red Capes are and who they're working for and what their goals are. But they kidnap Kaya, and the first few chapters of the game are all about figuring out answers to all those questions. And I think it's a decent premise because it gives you like a hook at the start, like what's with this girl? Why does she want you to kill her? Who are the Red Capes? How are the demons involved? Of course, you already are set up as like a devil summoner. You work for an enigmatic group called the Yagatarasu, and it's a good storyline premise. Like I really enjoyed that, but it cannot prepare you for where the story goes. And I know that's kind of whenever people describe a story to me in terms of like, wow, it's wild, man. I almost get a little bit frustrated because I'm like, please just tell me what it is. The game gets very goofy, very fast, but plays it with a straight face the entire time. I think that's the best way I can describe the story is that it goes to a lot of very silly places, but it doesn't act like it knows it's silly. It believes it's serious. I don't know what the intent of the original writing was, but that's how it comes across to me. And all in all, I'm okay with it because I don't need it to take itself super seriously. And I also don't need it to I don't need it to be like sometimes games almost get too irreverent where they're self-referential or they break the fourth wall. This game doesn't really do that, but it does allow itself just to be a little bit out there, and I kind of appreciated that. Does it make it a good story? I don't know if I'd call it a good story, but it's a memorable one. It's a fun story.
The final boss is like one of the most memorable final bosses just because of what it is. I won't say it, but just what it is.
And this
Yeah.
isn't in terms of like Yoko Taro sweeping the rug out from under you, or like you don't actually know like why he sees dead people or things like that. It's not a curve or a swerve like that. It's just what it allows the story where it allows the story to go in terms of who's important, who the NPCs are, what the conflict ends up becoming, how you end up solving it, all those sorts of things. I guess I will tease out that it does involve a small amount of time travel. So that just a little tease about how it all comes together at the end. Like I said, I don't know if I call it a good story. It's not art in that sense, but it's fun, it's memorable, and I enjoyed it. And I don't think I'd have it changed. Whoever originally wrote that, or whatever team originally wrote that, I'm glad that they did, and I say that genuinely. But I will say that it does lose a little bit of the kind of both on the gameplay and the story front. I think the reason why I'm only sort of lukewarm on this game is that it does kind of lose. It has a lot of fun flavor in the gameplay and in the story melding in the first couple chapters, and it feels like in the back half of the game it just loses that a little bit. It ends up feeling a little bit more out there when I wish it stayed a little bit more grounded. But at the same time, I'm glad that it didn't. I know that sounds a little bit conflicting, but that's kind of where I stand on it. But it's it's definitely very memorable.
Yeah, it's also worth mentioning too. Like a lot of this game is like voice acted. It's not fully voice acted, but a lot of like the main story scenes and some of the side stuff is has voice acting this time around in English and in Japanese. Um, I've had the Japanese voice track. I think it's uh pretty amusing with some of the voice casting. Like Narumi, for example, is Koyasu. I'm like, all right, sure, why not?
I went
But
with the English voice track, and I thought it was pretty good. Um, don't have a lot of opinions on it, but
yeah,
it was all right.
and one of the coolest things that they obviously preserve in the original is like it just this game has a killer OST. A lot of the great songs in this game, a lot of great tracks. Very
Oh,
nice vibe.
I do. I remember I was playing it and streaming it and showing it to Adam, and I said, Adam, I think like 5% of my enjoyment of this game is just the regular town music. It's just very energetic. It's a bop. It's like I would just sit there like run in circles
Yeah.
listening to it. It's a fun. The soundtrack's really good. Um, and I don't
Mhm.
know. I don't think it's remastered or rechanged in any
I,
way.
I I don't
I'm
I
not
don't know.
100%
Yeah,
sure.
I don't think so. It sounds very similar to the original, and I would hope they didn't like touch it all. It doesn't seem like they touch it. Maybe like a obviously better recording of it,
Yeah,
perhaps
like upsampled
better
or whatever,
quality.
but
Yeah.
they didn't like re-instrument it or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So
So it's still fantastic. Um,
mhm,
yeah, I mean, it's. I hope this that we get to hear, or we get word of a remaster slash remake of the second one.
mhm.
Um, Hopefully within the next year or so. I would love to see the series continue, and hopefully that leads to a brand new Raidou game in general. Like I think it's just like such like a special small little like sub series of Mega 10. Just like a lot of cool concepts, and a lot of really cool premise. Uh,
This might only affect a handful of people, but a few of the things that the game does that frustrated me a little bit is that it does hold off a lot of not a lot, a handful of content for New Game Plus. In terms of you can't get all the demons until New Game Plus, you can't do all the case files until New Game Plus, and there's like a whole additional weapon line that you can't access to New Game
You
Plus.
can't get Raiho till New Game Plus.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where like, does that really matter? Maybe not a ton, but it's like, oh darn. And uh you don't carry a lot into New Game Plus, which again sounds like who cares, but you carry your demon loyalty, your compendium, and that's pretty much it. Like you don't carry your levels, your swords, like anything you've previously crafted, you have to recraft. Your abilities that you unlocked by crafting swords, you don't carry over to New Game Plus. And I know that's just like that only matters for the sliver of people who care about New Game Plus, but I went to go do it and I'm like, oh, I thought more would transfer over and it's not as much. So I don't know if that really matters, but it is one thing that is a lingering thought of mine. Uh, Yeah. I
yeah.
also it only took me like 24 hours to beat. It's in terms of what we've been playing collectively, it's a brief game and its runtime is I think perfectly adequate for its gameplay and its story. If it was any shorter, I feel like it would be too thin. If it was any longer, I feel like it'd wear out its welcome. It's a good length for the game.
I think it is a little bit, a tiny bit cheeky that they put a tiny, tiny, tiny SMT5 reference in that game, and I'm like, you motherfuckers. So
Oh, I must have not
around,
caught that.
yeah, there are like little new posters around town that when you translate those posters, it's Hayao running for prime minister, and
Oh,
that's that's Hayao for SMT5, motherfuckers.
That's funny.
but yep, Raidou Remastered: The Mystery of the Soulless Army, of course, is out now. We have Cullen's review on the site at rpgsite.net. And Mikhail, I believe you did I don't have a link here, but I believe you did oh no, you did. You compared Raidou Remastered on Switch 2, Steam Deck, Switch 1, and ROG Ally, and talked about its just performance. So do you have just a summary about what you experienced trying to play
Yeah.
on those
So
platforms?
So for this one specifically, I had people reach out on like Discord and even on Blue Sky saying, since the Switch 2 version is a game key card, can you try out the Switch 1 version on Switch 2 if you're covering the game? Now, at that point, when I was asked this, I was covering the game, so obviously I didn't say anything. But yeah, so this has added like another point of comparison now for Switch 1 backward compatibility on Switch 2, because there are some people who want to buy the proper physical for whatever, like, to own it and stuff. So I tested that also, and like Atlas's, they posted this thing on their Japanese website, like an FAQ, which I covered as a news story before, which says the game is 720 30 to 60 on Switch 1 in handheld, and 1080 p 30 to 60 FPS docked on Switch 1. But the Switch 2 version they said was 1080 60 in both modes. Now that's not true, and that's not the whole story, because like the UI is gonna be native resolution, but the actual game is quite a bit softer, like across the board on Switch 1. So if you play the Switch 1 version on Switch 2, you do get 60 FPS, but it's not a great looking game. I think like right now, because the Steam Deck version has some weird performance issues which affect certain scenes quite a bit. Like it just does not go above 40 frames per second in those scenes, even if I run the game at like 320p. So this is something which Valve might have to fix on their own, like they did for Persona 3 Reload. And I think considering I don't know how this works, whether Sega pitches it to Valve or Valve works with Sega, but they have a Raidou remastered Steam Deck boot up movie now, which you can claim from the Steam Points shop, which I found a bit funny.
That's
So
kind of neat.
that's nice. Yeah, so they did that for Metaphor and Persona 5 Royal as well. So I guess like they're gonna just do this with Atlas titles and all. And I use the
Those aren't
Metaphor
time
one.
limited, right? You can just like buy them
No,
anytime
you
as
can
soon
just
as.
claim it. You can
Yeah,
just
they're
claim
part
it
of the
with
point
Steam
store.
points. Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't
yeah.
really deal with that at all, so I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, you can just claim it whenever. They did one for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 as well recently. So
Oh,
anyway,
cool.
back to Raidu. So yeah, like the Steam Deck version has some performance issues to the point where like if I forced it to downsample from 4K, or if I was running at 320p, the performance in some situations was the same. So like right now I just don't recommend playing it on Steam Deck if you have access to a Switch 2, because while it looks a bit soft to me in handheld, I would still say the Switch 2 version is like the best portable version. But like docked is kind of rough right now if you play on 4K. So
Yeah,
that's my big takeaway. And like before, like James, just give me a second. I actually picked up the game on PS5 today when I went to my store. So I don't think I'm going to update this, but I'll probably talk about it on the next episode once I try it, because I'm very curious how that version plays. Like I have no idea how the PlayStation or Xbox versions are. So that's probably something I'm going to look into at some point. So yeah, James, go ahead.
Yeah, all I was gonna say is I kind of saw that coming with like docked mode resolution, because I did do that Switch 2 preview
Yeah.
event with Sega, and I saw Raidou at that preview event. My takeaway was it's going to look a lot better in the handheld, because it's clear it's like 1080p something around there, and there's like no like image processing on it, which on one hand is good because it's not TA8 to shit, but also it's like, man, y- those pixels can cut you. They're so sharp.
Yeah, in the training area, especially with like it's really noticeable over there. So yeah, like that was the big takeaway. Also did some load time comparisons. I've started doing those as well, taking advantage of the tables which we have on the site backend. So yeah, that was an interesting thing to tackle, because It had like more, and even Steam Deck LCD, Steam Deck OLED. Like I'm gonna need a bigger coffee table at some point. That's all I'll say.
I don't know if I was missing something, but I remember when I played it mostly on PC, but I played a little bit on Steam Deck. On Steam Deck, of course, which is a 16 by 10 screen, I would pick a 16 by 10 resolution, and it would still be like letterboxed or horizontal boxed. And then I'm like, all right,
Yeah,
let me
that
just. I tried
that's
changing the
kind of a
resolution
thing
aspect
where
ratio, and it would
yeah,
always be letterboxed no matter what I picked. Like almost like it wasn't changing it. So I don't know if I was missing something or what, but that was I could never get a clean image, and I wasn't even sure I had the aspect ratio right on the Steam Deck when playing Raidou.
yeah, the thing with some games is they are 16:9 regardless of what happens. So even if they do display like 800p as an option, it still is 16:9. I don't know. I don't understand why that happens. Like I thought it'll just be, like sometimes I've had games where the UI would be 16:10, but the actual gameplay is still 16:9. You'd think some of that might happen here, but no, it's just 16:9 with black bars on the top and bottom. So that's just how I think Valve has like just made it like that, so that games which are 16:9 will be 16:9, even if they show 16:10, like 800p resolution. So I never understood that as well.
Yeah, and I don't mind it being letterboxed. Like in terms of, I'd much rather games be played at a proper resolution, like aspect ratio, rather than like how dare it not fill my whole screen. Reminds me of the old full screen versus widescreen back in like the 20 aughts for like DVDs. Whether or not it would be the normal like theater ratio or the 16 by 9 TV ratio, but I just was just weird because the resolution settings in game on the Steam Deck just didn't seem to be responsive, and that kind of explains it a little bit. So yep, Raidou Remastered, Mystery of the Soulless Army, out now. We have the review up on the site, as well as Mikhail's coverage of playing the game across all of those devices, Switch 1, Switch 2, Steam Deck, ROG Ally. And then, with no good way to segue into the next title, we have one other title at least listed here that we want to talk about before going into wrapping up some SGF stuff. Go ahead.
I can introduce this.
Sure, go ahead.
I gave Chow homework. I gave an assignment. Um, Several days ago, they released a demo on Steam for the upcoming English release for the remake of ToHeart, a visual novel that came out a very long time ago. And this was like a new full 3D remake thing, and I didn't have time to get around to the demo. I only read what people were talking about in Steam discussion forums thing, and it was kind of let's say it seemed very divisive. I'll say from what people have been posting there. So I was like, Chow, I know you. I need you to get to the bottom of this. I need a field report of this ToHeart remake demo on Steam. What have you played it? What what have you found?
Okay, I can safely say that this game is not machine translated. It is human translated, and because it has a lot of typos.
Okay, okay. So let's kind of introduce just broadly what the game's premise is, and then kind of go into like what have you found with like the English script, and, like just
Okay,
like
so
your broad thoughts after that.
Two Heart is I would say it's more like a rom com. I would say
Mhm.
it's like Aqua Plus's like rom com series that they have started. It's not like a big franchise. There's only like I guess there's only like two sequels, and then after that, it's like they reuse these characters in like spin-offs, like the
Aquapazza.
Dungeon. Yeah, and then they like some of the characters were featured in Dungeon Travelers. If you played that, not the second one, the first Dungeon
Um,
Travelers, which
yeah.
was never translated into English, if I believe.
No, it came out on Steam. It's the
Oh yeah,
one that didn't get blocked from Steam release. Ugh.
yeah, I totally forgot about that. I never bought it because I heard they have some crazy DRM there, so not buying that.
No. It's only the non-Steam version that has
That's
the
like the Joe
DRM.
run you're thinking, I think.
Yeah.
And then the Steam is just like its standard, Steam.
Yeah.
DRM.
Okay. Okay, then I must be misremembering then. But yeah, so some of these characters are featured in different games as well, but it is a rom-com. So anyways, this is a remake, so it features like new voice acting and you still can play with the OG voices. There's like a toggle to set it to modern or legacy voice, and you can do it on a step, and you can adjust it for every single character in the game, like the Star Ocean remakes. You know,
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
you cannot do that with the main character because the main character was a silent protagonist. So there's only a
Mhm.
modern setting for the main character, right?
Oh, okay. So your main character is voiced now. Interesting.
Yes. So the main character has a voice now, right? I don't know who the voice actor is, but this guy gives me a very like Kamiya vibe. I believe what is that
Hmm.
guy's name? The guy that plays the main character in the Monogatari
Yeah, Kamiya,
series.
Hiroshi Kamiya, I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah. He sounds a lot like him, but it's not him. Okay, he has like a lot of like the way that his mannerism feels just
Uh-huh.
like like him in a way. At least that's how I see it, right? But yeah, so this is like a rom-com game, and it's a demo. And the worst thing about this demo, I will tell you, is that you cannot save your game. I could not find a way to save this
Oh,
game.
really? Okay,
Yeah,
that's
I had to
weird.
beat the demo in that one sitting, and just to give you this report because it wouldn't let me save in this demo, right?
I heard the demo was like pretty meaty too. It was like for some people they said like it was like 6 hours or something, but I don't know.
It took me
Depends on
like
reading
3 hours
speed.
to get through it. Maybe
Okay.
there was slow reading, I
Yeah.
guess.
Okay. So and
So
then you played the original ToHeart, and now you're going into this.
yeah, I
This
played the original, but it's very, very
very
long
long
time
time
ago.
ago. Yeah.
So obviously I can't get far enough to see like other characters like
Yeah.
multi because the game is not, it's just like get to like the big graduation test or something, and the demo's over. So it's not really got into like the later part of the story, right? So I don't get to meet characters like multi because I'm curious to hear like her voice in this game because she's gonna be like voicing a lot of major characters in more recent RPGs like the Legend of Heroes games. Um, the first remake, she's like the new voice for Chloe, or you know. So I
Yeah.
was curious to hear her voice, but the demo doesn't get you that far, so you don't get to hear Multi's voice, right? Um, what was I thinking? Okay, so one of the biggest changes in this demo is like when you start the game, it asks you, do you want the decision maker thing on? And this thing is basically like, you know how like a lot of visual novels back then, you're like you stuck all these like choices and you don't know what these choices do until like much later, and you're like locked into like a route of some sort. And this game basically has options. Do you want this thing turn on? And they'll tell you, and they'll have a character icon to say that you're locked into that route by picking these choices.
Oh, okay.
So
So it's like when you turn that on, like the choices, it'll have like, hey, this is the choice that will swing more to this route, and then the other choice will swing more into this
yeah,
route. Okay.
basically.
Okay.
So you have
I
like
mean,
icons
I
like,
got
oh yeah,
it.
this will make the girl happy. Well, these other choices like it does nothing, and so you don't pick them. It's like, do you want this on? We have game journalist mode for visual novels, guys.
Well, I mean, it's a nice like toggleable feature. At least you can turn it off. If it was forced, then that'd be a problem. But if it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you
it's
can just turn
optional
it
on,
off.
right? But it's like
Yeah.
I guess for modern fans, like okay, I just want to read the story. I don't care about like these.
Because here's what people are gonna do. Even if that was not a feature, people will just go look up a route walkthrough guide.
Yeah, yeah, it's true,
So
right?
that doesn't really. It's a non like all roads lead to the same
Same
result.
path. Yeah, it's like I don't know. But back then, people have a lot of mystery trying to figure out like visual novels, like how to get to the end of the
Like
route
for
or something.
example, when I'm rereading Fate Stay Night, I'm not gonna go try to remember what the choices were to like get into like the next routes. Like I don't exactly remember what the exact
Yeah, like
choices were.
I totally understand it, right? It's like yeah,
Yeah.
I don't. I guess I don't want to play visual novels these days for like trying to solve the mystery by making the right choice. And some of the like some games are like very anal about what you trying to pick, right? It'll be like you had to
Yeah.
pick like the exact choices to get the route, and
Right.
it's really
Yeah.
annoying, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I could see why they did that, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But obviously, like some people might not like it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's basically it. And I think the other thing I dislike is that sometimes like you get to like wander like a free roam in the game, and the
Okay.
free roam is like kind of really dumb. It's just like you just kind of walk to the character for to trigger an event,
Wait,
and
like when you free roam, is it like all done in first person, or do you see a
it's
character
a very
model?
cheap 3D graphics. And the game even offers like, do you want to play this in like performance, like ultra light or graphics mode? And I was like
Okay.
showing this to like Michaela, and like, can you tell the difference with these free graphics settings? I was like, maybe there's that shadow over
Sorry.
there.
That rules actually. He's like, I can't even tell. Okay, interesting.
So
Yeah, yeah. I guess that's like obviously one of the biggest things about this like full 3D remake is like how big was the file size of the demo that you downloaded?
I believe it's 40 gigabytes or something.
Okay, yeah, because on the store page it says, hey, to have 40 gigs available. It's like I'm just thinking like, holy shit, that's like a really big file size for this kind of game. Like, I mean, I
I
guess
don't
it
even think
makes
this game is
sense.
well optimized, to be honest with you.
Really? Oh
When I
my
was
god,
playing
yeah.
it, it was like I hear my computer fans spinning like crazy. I'm like,
Oh my fucking god, dude.
it's like, what is this? Is this clear obscure? No, it's not. It's too hard.
Yeah, that's not really great. I didn't like when Claire Obscure spun off my fans. That's kind of a little. I always get a little worried when a game spins up my fans.
So yeah, I don't think it's well optimized. Like, yeah, it runs like 60 FPS for me, obviously, but the thing is, I just, the computer's just like spinning like crazy. You just wonder, is this game poorly optimized? I don't know. I'm not the computer expert, and I'm not sure if I'm spreading misinformation here, but that's kind of
I
like
mean,
what
I mean that's what you experienced, and there's some people also in the forums who are concerned about the optimization of this game based on their, what they experience. It's valid.
But
Um,
yeah,
how do you feel about like kind of the new presentation? Because what it looked like for the trailer is like you kind of experience when you're interacting with people, it's kind of like from your main character's like eyes, like their perspective. So like you can kind of see like their head moving like from a first person perspective, looking at the other character and so forth. It's not like a standard old school VN presentation. It's like
I think
very
it's an
like
improvement. I know like the original is not much to compare at because the old one is like one of those old school visual novels where you basically talk to somebody and the
it's all
entire
static
thing.
images
It's just
pretty
a static
much.
image, and the text covers the entire screen. Not like new ones where there's a text window in the bottom of the screen. It's like the OG where it just text
Yeah, yeah,
full screen, right?
right.
It's like I'm not kind of into that. I prefer more of the text window in the bottom. So this is like a huge upgrade for me. But
This one has a
personally,
text window at the bottom.
yeah, it has it's more like a layered, like transparent window in the bottom, right?
Okay,
And it's just like
okay,
a text, right?
okay.
And I think one of the things I don't like about the text is like it's was it like the font? I don't like the choice of the font either, but that's me. I always complain about fonts. And sometimes it goes like small and big. There's like this one dialogue that the main character spoke. It's like an entire line, a straight line to fill up like the sentence. It's like, why not just use two lines? But it's like a very long line with a small front, and the bottom is like a gigantic font. I'm like, what? It's like I don't know. It's just like some inconsistencies, and
Mm,
maybe it'll get sorted. I don't know, right?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
what's the other thing I
Does
was
it seem promising? Like, does it like excite you for the full game? Like after what you see in the demo, you're kind of lukewarm.
I'm a little lukewarm about it, but the voice acting's good. I think the new voices are better than the OG cast in a way.
Interesting.
Except for the main character. Except for the main character. I know they got Kana Ichinose, which is a VA I like a lot. The old one is he got Saber's VA from the
Yeah.
Fate series.
Right.
Uh, trying
I,
to remember her name.
I tried to remember her name too. Like I had it on the tip of my tongue,
It's
and
like
then
Ayumi
uh, yeah,
Kawasumi.
yeah, Kawasumi, Ayako Kawasumi. That's right.
Yeah, I just don't want to get her name wrong. But
Yeah,
yeah, she did the OG voice, and this is like before she does like her saber like
yeah. Before her,
guest voice.
yeah, this is pre Saber Kawasumi. It was
Yeah, so she
Soul.
always does that super ultra cute voice, and I don't think anyone can do that. But the thing is, that's not the voice that makes her famous. It's the saber voice that makes her famous.
Yeah.
She's like forced to do all the saber voices, right? So I think the only like downgrade might be her. I think like it's just like a very hard thing to fight against, right?
Yeah, I mean that like we're kind of like it was one of those things that like way back when like when you're kind of getting into the genre like when Kawasumi was like way more doing like more cutesy roles, like everyone kind of had a little crush on her because she nailed it so well.
Yeah. So
Um,
it will be like that. And
mhm.
then after that, it's like I think like okay, so for the prologue, you don't really get to introduce like too many characters, right? So you're only introduced to your childhood friend, which is Akari. She's like what's that archetype? I'm not sure if people play other visual novels like the Dokusei series, where there's like a neighbor that's constantly like trying to bug you, get the main character to go to school. She's kind of like that lovely childhood friend that's just overly attached for no reason, right?
She's like the red-haired main chick from like Move Love. Forgot her name too, but she's the same archetype. For
Okay,
like
yeah, it's a very common trope,
yeah,
right? And then they have like other characters too. Like you get to meet like your her friend, which is Shiho, which is this gossip person in school, which constantly spread rumors, and about half of the time they're true and half the time they're wrong. So the main character's constantly like making fun of her. That none of her rumors are like has credibility to it, right?
Mhm.
And then the other character is Sarakawa, which is like this really rich girl, and she doesn't talk. Like literally, like all her voice lines, she just nods. And it's like,
Nice.
like okay, it's like, oh, did you just say that? Nods. It's like, okay, what? I think that's one of the easiest role to voice. She's only had only like one line. I only heard her said one word, right? So it's like it's literally like sighs and like nods and like you cannot really tell much about her. But that is a character that's introduced in the demo, which is pretty early. And then there is Lemmy, which is a half California American girl, half Japanese. So it's like the Japanese stereotype with what American girls are. Hey, they came here to learn Japanese, so they always speak like some broken English or something in the middle of a sentence, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so there's that stereotype, and then after that, it goes into I think what the thing that people need to know about this demo is Two Heart's a very old vision novel, so it kind of plays like the first White Album. So sometimes it's like you have an interaction event, and that event is like shorter than a minute, and then you're like, huh, that was it. You know, it's like I think that might turn off some people
Yeah.
because it's kind of good to show its age, right?
Yeah. They didn't really, like super modernize like the whole flow of the game. I think they wanted to like update the visual presentation, but be faithful to what what
Yeah.
that game
So
is. And because I don't think they wanted to, because that would upset the Japanese audience if they tried to reinvent that game.
yeah, so I just don't want people like to have like this misconception that it's like, oh, it's a constant mission novel, but it's a lot different than what you would see, right? I mean, I think what makes Two Heart a little bit different from your standard one is like back in the day, it's like you get to kind of go pick where you want to go with the main character, and then you interact with the character like with small snippets of these characters,
I
right?
like the Amagami series
Yeah.
also.
So
There's like a more adventure elements in like a lot of those older visual novels.
So
So
yeah, I would say
yeah,
it's you could kind of pick it up. It's like, but it's not gonna blow your minds out, right? It's like this is kind of like the rom com like set. It's kind of sets the bar of the rom com genre back in the day, but nowadays it looks pretty
yeah,
ordinary, right?
yeah. But I mean, I think it's still really cool that they underwent this. Like, hey, let's make a 3D remake of the game. Um, I think it was a pretty slick decision, even though it's kind of you would because the game. I don't know. I kind of wish they also had like a legacy mode, like in terms of like I kind of wish they kind of stuck the original game in there too as like a mode that you can play. But that's difficult when you're trying to insert like text.
I think
From
that's
the
one of the hardest things to
Yeah,
go with because Aqua Plus when they first started, they used to make 18 plus visual novels, and
yeah,
this is actually one of those. And then it's like when they ported to PlayStation, they hire like big name voice actors to like
right,
voice all the characters, and now all the etchy scenes are removed, and now it's
yeah,
like it's more that. And then you get people on Steam like complaining, it's like I want the eroge world. They never made eroge with all like those new additions. Like they're not gonna put that back, right?
yeah, no,
So it's just like I don't
yeah,
know. It's like
difficult, but. Yeah, I mean this out up to this upcoming week, just in a few
3 days.
days on the 25th. So interested to see like where people land on it. I don't think I'll have time anytime soon to get around to it,
Yeah.
but I am interested.
Same day as Death Stranding too.
not that game, please.
Kojima should fucking get out of the way, okay? He needs to be careful.
I
He has reason to be scared.
Look, I'm just excited for it to come out, even though I'm probably not going to play it anytime soon, so they can finally start talking about that new Mono game, so I know if it's actually going to be good or if it's going to be just like
Mobius, monochrome
Mobius.
Mobius. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we'll see. I Yeah,
Look, look.
hopefully it works out.
I'm all in supporting Aqua Plus. I want some of the Tears of Tiara games to come out on Steam, mostly the second one. So, and then it's like, what other games I get? White
There's
Album
a weird
2? I
one.
still need my
Yeah,
White
oh
Album
yeah.
2.
I think I'm everyone's waiting for White Album 2's like an official localization. Literally everyone. Um, everyone's tapping their feet like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
It's like I just buy all these games just because I want their other games to come out.
It's like we live in a world where fucking Fate Stay Night and soon Hall Atraxia will be coming to Steam before White Album 2.
I feel like it's not. Those aren't even like the like. White Album 2 is like no longer the White Whale. The real White Whale these days is Vanillaware coming to PC. That's the real impossible scenario. I feel like these days.
I think it's gonna happen with their next game because you can read between the lines in that like Sega's been trying to get them to go multi-platform more and more, and they've been nice about it. They even let them make an Xbox version of Unicorn Overlord instead of a PC version. But I can tell you right now, I would be shocked if they don't just put their foot down for the next project they publish and say, no, this is the one.
Kamitai's like, no, I'm going bankrupt and I'm shutting down the company before we do that. Fuck PCs.
Sort of guy who just hates PCs for some reason.
No, that's legitimately it. We've gotten like multiple like we know that's literally he is literally the problem. We know that's the problem.
Oh man,
I'm a proud owner of Unicorn Overlord on Xbox Series X.
So am I, but yeah.
So yeah, the weird thing about ToHeart coming out is the English release is only for Steam. It's coming out on Switch too, but it's only Japan for that one. So if you want to,
we do not know if the full release for the Switch version is going to have English or not. We just know that the demo doesn't have English. So.
Yeah, but
I bought the full release, so if I get it, I'll let you know. But
all sides are pointing are that based on the demo's distribution. Of course, subject to change if the full release does surprise everyone. But I feel like they would have communicated that by now.
Let me check the Nintendo Store and see if it says anything because it has a release calendar. And you can check usually the supported languages through that.
Yeah, let me go check. Yeah, it only shows Japanese on the eShop entry for ToHeart.
Oof.
But yeah, they mention, yeah, nothing else. Okay, so thank you, Chow, for giving me your field report on the ToHeart Remake demo on Steam. If you're interested in checking it out, it's available now. If you're interested, best of luck to it. I'm interested to see how this will do and how the final game shapes up. Hopefully, all those typos kind of get corrected. If not at launch, then over time, and hopefully, that people figure out what's causing this game to spin up those fans. If there's anything that can be done to rectify that too.
I think there's one very obvious typo. I even showed it to Adam. It was like one of them was like he was trying to tell a story to this girl saying, "Oh, it's like, how's your day today?" It's like, yeah, it was great. I bumped into a hot junior. I'm like, hot junior, what? And then you're like, listen to voice audio. It's like a bisho, what is it? Bishojo senpai. It's like that's senpai. That's not your junior.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty obvious type.
So it's like, yeah, when you have the voice acting and then you're like, with the whatever is written there, it's like you could easily see what's mismatched, right?
Yeah.
So,
can you switch language scripts on the fly? On that, can you go to the options menu and just switch languages? If you don't know, then
no, I don't think you can. I think you have to like go back to the title screen to set to, like to
okay.
Japanese. But I can't save, so I had to be the all in one setting. So
that was a cool thing about Witch on the Holy Night and Tsukihime, that you can just do it on the fly while you're reading even the same like the dialogue text box. You can just like switch to another. Those are fun. All right. Well, that's our usual VN/romcom section. We like to check in on here and there.
I imagine tuned next week for the 2-hour mobile game release segment.
There's a lot of mobile games coming out this week, or at least
Yeah.
games with gotcha elements. We were talking about it before this.
Now that's a
It's-
multi-layered joke because if you haven't listened to the podcast that much, you would think that I'm being completely like ironic. But if you have listened to the podcast, you'll know that I'm being completely serious, and that is in fact what's going to happen.
Yeah, for people who are interested, by chance, like we were kind of recounting it. Obviously, there's Persona 5: The Phantom X. There's Uma Musume coming, finally, the English release. You have another game called like Silver and Blood. It's a relatively less known one. And then there's the Steam release of Blue Archive. So there's four off the top of my head, and there's like maybe one or two others that I may be forgetting. Um, but yeah, it's great. So it's just a big week for games with gotcha mechanics. Everyone's favorite.
And this was probably the one that we teased up last week, this next topic, as one of the last major things to cover out of Summer Games Fest. We have a couple different features and news posts up on the site, all about the upcoming game, Digimon Story Time Stranger. So we on the site, just to clearly lay it out, we have a preview op-ed, hands-on kind of, I don't know, preview. I'll just say keep it as that Josh wrote up for Digimon Story Time Stranger, as well as a group interview from Josh, Adam, and James that was able to speak to the producer Ryosuke Hara about the game. So this is kind of being one last hurrah for Summer Games Fest about you three and your time with Digimon Story Time Stranger. Of course, this is releasing in early October, in a few months out. So since you wrote the preview feature, I'll hand it off to Josh to just talk about your time with the game at Summer Games Fest, and then of course James and Adam can chime in talking about your opportunity seeing the game, talking to the producer about this upcoming Digimon game.
Yeah, when we were talking about last week's podcast about like our favorite things that we saw at SGF, I couldn't talk about this game yet, so I was like, well, I do have a game in mind, but can't talk about it yet. And this was that game, and I did it. It was very unexpected. I played the previous Digimon story games with Cyber Sleuth and Hacker's Memory, and while there were some charming aspects about them, especially some like the side quest premises in them, there was a lot to that could have been better. The obviously the samey environments, like the blue cyberspace environments throughout the game, that they're very samey, didn't help. A lot of like the way that you raised your Digimon in that game felt kind of grindy, in the way that you menued through it didn't feel great. There's a lot of localization stuff in both of those games, especially in Cyber Sleuth, the first Cyber Sleuth, that didn't it was very stiff. So like I had an okay time, but I wasn't their biggest fan. Um, so I was walking into this SGF appointment for Digimon Story Time Stranger, not knowing really what to expect. I wanted to be surprised. I was hoping this would be a big step up. I was like, I don't know what, like, we'll just give it a shot. And I came out of that. I left those doors out of that point being like, man, this has crept up to be like one of the games I'm most excited for this year, after getting that hands on and that interview. And I guess this is at least for our crowd, like a lot of our crowd feels this way, because both this preview and interview, I guess, exploded on social media when we put them up. There were a lot of people sharing that same excitement. I got a lot of great responses and feedback for both of these pieces, and thank you so much to everyone who enjoyed those. Obviously, thank you to James and Adam, for going with for all of us to going to this appointment and kind of asking good questions and seeing it for ourselves. On that, I mean, everything that we saw on this, I wrote up about, and they also released like a 30-minute like gameplay preview video on several Japanese YouTuber channels that shows a lot of the similar things that we saw. But it's very much a very highly polished Digimon story, 3D cell shaded game, very built from the ground up for modern systems instead of for the Vita, because the first Cyber Sleuth and the re-releases going forward on that, this was all developed for the Vita in mind, while this one is is built with current generation hardware in mind. It really shows. The colors pop. They're vivid, like just full of life. Very, very, just it looks gorgeous, and the we got a little bit of the basics tutorials of like, hey, this is what the game's about. This is how you play the game. We saw like your main character has like a little blaster that can be used to shoot obstacles and also shoot down, Digimon to either gain a preemptive strike into battle, or if they're underleveled enough, like with Raidou, and other games, you can just instantly defeat them on the spot and get all the resources that you normally would have gotten if you fought them normally. Still a turn-based game. Instead of Cyber Sleuth and Hacker's Memory, three Digimon party, and this one you have a four, but it's like you have three of your Digimon plus one guest party member that you cannot directly control, but the other Digimon you can. You also have three reserve Digimon that you can swap out freely without it costing a turn, and it has that similar rock paper scissors mechanic of data vaccine virus, like in the previous Digimon story games, along with the elemental attributes. The really nice thing about this game is that, as someone put it on social media, you're basically a walking digibank because you can have up to 999 Pokemon stored and easily swappable with you
Digimon?
from the main menu. Or yeah, but did they say Pokemon or Digimon?
Yes, he said Pokemon.
Fuck, I already said Pokemon. Damn it! I tried to. I yes, I meant Digimon. Even after so many years later, I still say Pokemon instead of Digimon, even though these franchises have existed for how many years now? God. And all those Digimon in that you have with you gain experience at a reduced rate. So even if you have like 200 Digimon, they'll still gain experience as long as they're your inventory and stuff like that.
Some of the Pokemon that Raidou can summon are pretty nice.
Yeah, great. But as pointed out by many of people who read the preview, and Adam and many others throughout the week, but the big highlight, it's kind of weird to say the highlight, but it was one of the big highlights out of this SGM is there's this boss battle with Parrotmon on top of this electrical tower as like the final part of this demo. And I was going into it, I was looking at like my skill list. I was like, oh, cool. There's like some buffs I can use at the first turn of this battle. I should probably use buffs. So I used like an attack buff on my first turn, and like all the Bandai Namco employees in the room were like, "Whoa!" I was like, "What?" I was like, "Dude, you're the first person we've seen that you used buffs out of like all the appointments so far." I'm like, "No way, really?" Like no, you're the first one. I'm like, and then me, James, and Adam are just like contemplating right then and there about like of like just the state of like, I guess I don't know how people play RPGs. I guess just a normal person. We're like, man, what happened, man? Buffs
More
are
people need
cool.
to play dungeon RPGs, blobbers, if you will. They'll be forced to learn that buffs are your best friend. They are your ally. You will die without their grace.
I have two comments on this. One, so the guy presenting the demo was speaking English to us. I forget he wasn't the interpreter, right? But he was the one like kind of demoing the game and whatnot. But like even like the Japanese like creators who were there, who some of them probably don't speak English very well, like even they kind of like gasped as soon as Josh did a buff. Like they even like the creators and not the PR people were surprised that like someone's using a buff. Thank God. So that was fun. So it wasn't just the PR people, but also slightly inside baseball. One of the PR people at Bandai Namco is John Harden, who used to work at Atlas. And I thought his response to James on social media was fun about the buffs because he brought up the Matador fight in SMT3, which is like
Yes.
anyone who's played it knows that is the fight where it's like you use buffs or you lose. So I think that's just a fun comment. It's a fun lingering history that Atlas or that John has with that. So
Yes.
that's fun.
So yeah. But we got a lot of what we saw. The release date announcement trailer also showed off. Like I got to. There's mounts in the game. Like the one that we got to mount on was Garurumon. Many fans of Digimon will know Garurumon, one of the main two Digimon in the first season. But they showed like many other Digimon that you can mount on, and the way that you ride on those Digimon is like different. In that release date trailer, like some was like you're on the back of the motorcycle Beelzemon, or you're on the shoulder of like a Manzaimon, which is like a big yellow teddy bear. Pretty much, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. That like you can there are a lot of seems to be a lot of different mounts, and the way that you ride them can be different because of like the structure, the anatomy of the Digimon. The way you ride them is different. I'm like, those are really cool touches, and just like there's a central hometown called Central Town in Time Stranger that's just like it's very like it has like a lot of different Digimon just kind of going about their daily lives as if it was like a normal human society of like, hey, you have the Zudomon here, and it's like it has normally a big hammer. It's like kind of like the blacksmith like wailing on this anvil there, and then like some of the things that they showed in previous trailers, like this bar full of like Digimon just interacting, even getting booze and passing out drunk on the table. It's like that's fucking awesome, like just the way that like you think of Digimon, it's like, oh, you never really see this side of Digimon um in that way. And when we were talking to producer Ryosuke Hara about like the development of this game, they're like, yeah, we feel like we should apologize for how long it's taken to release this game, but they started working on this game as early as like coming off of the development of Hacker's Memory. And how long was Hacker's Memory released? Like
That was
7?
2017.
Yeah, yeah. So that's like what, 8 years ago. So
Yeah, and it's like I said on socials, you can tell that this has a budget. Like
yeah. Mhm.
I did not expect this. It for lack of a better word, like one thing I've heard some people say is if you're gonna charge $70 for a video game, there's sort of like a social contract where it's like you need to be able to see where the justification of that comes from, where the money's gone into it that justifies it being $70. And I'm not saying people should like if you're fine with $70 or not, like that's a purely personal thing. But I can definitely see looking at Digimon Story Time Stranger that's like, okay, you at least put the budget in where I can see the justification for why this might be $70.
Oh, and really there's a lot of like impressive parts about this too, because as I noted in my preview, um that one of the details about Time Stranger that they revealed at a recent event was like, hey, this will have the biggest roster in a Digimon story game. It'll have over 450 Digimon in it. I don't know if it's the biggest roster in every Digimon series, but at least for the story games, that is the biggest roster number. And they have like it's gonna be cool that like you're gonna see all these 3D cell shaded like models of them. And they even said like in another interview that I read on Automaton was they were able to reuse some motion data from Cyber Sleuth, but they basically had to remake all of the 3D models due to the leap from PS Vita to now modern hardware. And then so like they had to like craft these like almost from scratch for modern hardware. I'm like, wow, that's fucking crazy. That like it's not just like, hey, being reused from Cyber Sleuth. It's like, no, they're really taking into account, hey, we have more powerful hardware. We want this to show that we're on more powerful hardware. We won't take like the easy way of like kind of extracting them directly from the previous Digimon story games. And it's also really really cool. That really great little detail that they're doing is when you're doing like the Digivolution screen in Time Stranger, they have like little almost 8 to 16-bit like pixel sprites to show the Digimon, almost like how they would their models would be like in a Digivice in the game, and then like all of them have unique models for those sprites. It's not like one type has like share the same model. It's like every single Digimon has their own unique sprite, and the presenter mentioned like all Digimon in the game will have unique sprite on the screen. I'm like, I want to see all those sprites. I really want to see all those sprites. That's such like a little small detail that like you probably didn't need to go super hard on, but you did just to show that like you really are putting your best foot forward in this game. It's like like the only really big significant thing that you can really pin against this game at the moment, based on what they've shown, is like, hey, unfortunately, this will run only up to 30 FPS on consoles, and then if you're playing on PC, it'll go to 60 FPS. So hopefully they find a way to eventually bump up the frame rate on consoles, maybe in a patch down the line. But so far, what they've shown and what they've said about this game is like hitting all the right notes. They've added more complexity to the battle system compared to Cyber Sleuth and Hacker's Memory. There's more things going on in the way that you're swapping out Digimon on the fly, and their their skill list can now be is more customizable because of like attachment skills that you can buy from shops. You can buy like skills for your Digimon. So if you have a favorite Digimon, you can ideally put like the skills that you want on them, so they continue to be viable in combat, and you're using your favorite Digimon, and so forth. So there's a lot in this game that they're just like kind of showing and presenting like in all the right ways, and I'm I was blown away. I was honestly blown away after our preview and interview of it. And I'm just like, when is the release date of this game again? Early October. I'm like, I'm just like every day. I kind of think about this game, and I'm like, I cannot wait to play the new Digimon story game, and I feel like it's a billion years away. Even though it's just in October, I'm like, man, it feels so long, so long away to get there. Because I just really, really want to play this game. I was genuinely impressed. I did not expect that I would be this impressed with it.
So, like I said, those are two big features up on the site. We have Josh's preview as well as the group interview with Ryosuke Hara. I think that's the last thing that I have explicitly listed from Summer Game Fest. I know we've been spending the last couple weeks talking about it, but was there any other final topics? I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Any final topics that we couldn't speak about until now?
You go
I
for it,
did.
Josh.
I don't know if I talked about Ratatan last week, but I did put up my preview for it, and that was
Oh yeah, go ahead and
technically
speak to
Summer Game
that.
Fest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really funny how the development team for Ratatan is trying very hard to say, "Oh, we were a different game from Patapon. We're not that series." Yet you look at the logo, you can tell that it's very clearly meant to also be read as Patapon. And then you go into the settings, and by default, like the way that the notes are displayed and the way that songs work is similar to Patapon, but not really the same. But if you change it to advanced for both of them, it's just exactly the same. And gameplay wise, it's like there's some differences, but it's not like it feels like something that you might have gotten in a Patapon 4. Like, even the roguelike structure feels like something like, Patapon was always kind of, like, inspired by its peers, like, Patapon 3 was very much, like, you could tell was a direct response to how, like, Monster Hunter Freebie Night and, Portable Third, like, blew up in Japan, so they had more of a focus on multiplayer and that sort of gameplay loop, and it's like, well, that's obviously them looking at the market and being like, "Oh, how can we kind of retool how this series works to better fit that?" And, like, the roguelike structure just works. Game's fun so far. It's coming out in early access on PC next month. I'm interested to play more. I don't know when I'll actually review it because, like, I don't know how long early access is gonna last, and I wait for early access to finish before I, like, really focus on games like this. Like, I haven't even played Hades 2
Right.
yet because it's like I'm waiting for it to just be done. But, yeah, it's neat. It's, a good time. It feels like a proper successor to Patapon, even if the developers are very very clearly trying to juggle that obvious fact and be like, "Oh, but it's also its own game," even though it's like, okay, again, I can't stress it enough. Just look at the logo. It's
Mhm.
blatant.
It's also releasing in a really weird time because like Bandai Namco is also re-releasing Patapon 1 and 2
Yep.
very soon, like early July, like July 10th, I believe. Um, and that'll be available to like basically all platforms as well. So No, it's a good balance of like, hey, if you've never played Patapon, you should definitely go play Patapon. And if for people who played Patapon, if you're interested to see like what the successor is, or even people who are like new to it, like just want to give this a shot, like there's some really like neat and interesting ideas, like interesting evolutions on a path forward of like if there was a like you said a hypothetical Patapon 4, like what that could have looked like and what direction they would have gone in.
So yep, we've got that preview up on the site as well. Ratatan is exactly what I didn't know I wanted from a Patapon successor from James. And then one other final thing from Summer Game Fest, Scott White, who also attended, did write up a preview for something that we've talked about before, but isn't quite in our scope, and that's the big sequel to Daemon X Machina, Titanic, Scion. So he had a pretty long hands-off session, and he got a lot of just like off-screen footage of the menu, the UIs, the maps, and basically shared up all of what was never really bundled together in a press release about what this game contains, but was shown publicly in the Summer Game Fest session, and was able to write that up as a preview. He put it under the branching path tag. We like to use that occasionally to talk about games that aren't clearly in our purview, but we want to talk about them because we're excited about them. So Scott did write up a little preview about his hands-off experience with Daemon X Machina from Summer Games Fest as well.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. They've been releasing like character trailers recently, like of like the different squads in the game. And I didn't know this until they showed this, but I guess Kimihiko Fujisaka is the character designer of the characters in this Daemon X Machina sequel this time around, because in the original it was Yusuke Kozaki for that one. So very interesting decision to go with Fujisaka on this, and it they've done a fucking superb job.
That's the last story guy, right?
Yes. Last Story, Terra Battle, just phenomenal artist. Just and it all looks excellent. I cannot wait for this game. It seems bonkers. I feel like they've reimagined what Daemon X Machina is. Like they want it feels like they want to carve like an identity for Daemon X Machina beyond just like, hey, we're kind of existing in the shadow of Armored Core, because at that time there was no new Armored Core on the horizon when the first Daemon X Machina came out. And now there's like, we want this series to like have its own identity, and how do we move forward from the first one is instead of it existing in that shadow. So I'm very interested to see like what they do with that. It's really exciting what they've shown so.
And then I think, let's see here. Mikhail has a few previews up as well. These are focused on, looks like the Switch 2. So, Mikhail, I don't know which one you want to talk about first. We have, I'll just kind of light out the groundwork here. You looked at Cyberpunk 2077. Of course, that's kind of been in the news as obviously being one of the few fully physical game cards, not game key card, one of the few physical game cartridges on the Switch 2. You also looked at Monster Hunter games, Rise, Sunbreak, Stories 2, and then a few of the available Tales of games, Vesperia, Symphonia, Graces. So it sounds like you've just been having a good time just breaking in your Switch 2. So I don't know exactly which topic you want to talk about first, but is there any like key highlights about running all these games? They don't have Switch 2 editions, well, other than Cyberpunk, but just running some games on Switch 2 just to see how they perform on the newer hardware.
Yeah. So basically, the Cyberpunk thing wasn't really like a review of the port or anything. It was just the talking about my impressions with it and how it got me back to playing it, because I've played it like on and off here and there, multiple platforms and stuff. And the funny thing is, everyone I know ended up playing Cyberpunk because of Edge Runners on Netflix, the anime, which triggered it. But in my case, playing Cyberpunk on Switch pushed me to like finally watch Edge Runners, which I love. And I'm obsessed with it right now. So yeah, I basically just put up how I thought, like, as someone who's played 120 or 130 hours of The Witcher 3 on Switch 1 years ago, that Cyberpunk is more impressive than that was back then. Like, despite some issues, like, it's not perfect. Like, Phantom Liberty can run like dog shit on Switch 2, but like Dogtown, dog shit or whatever. But yeah, I think it's very impressive what they did, and they went like they went above and beyond by doing like touchscreen support for the menus. They did mouse controls, they did gyro, they did motion. They just basically did everything right with the port, except for like just some optimization, which I hope they do. And like there's a new patch coming out next week, 2.3. Hopefully it brings in a few more cars or something, but we'll see what else it does. So that is Cyberpunk.
Sorry, that's just an
And
inside joke about
yeah,
the cars. They always add cars. Hopefully more than just
which
cars.
yeah. So and the other stuff is we're just trying to figure out how to tackle what to do with the Switch 2 because like just so for those unaware, no one had any review units for the Switch 2 like before I guess a day prior to it launching. And so no one had access to the games. We didn't have any idea how backward compatibility worked either, except for like this list Nintendo posted. So was just figuring out how to tackle some of these games and was talking to Alex, and yeah, so I'm just doing these features covering franchises as a whole, like in these articles. So I started with Tales and Monster Hunter because not that many entries. Obviously, like when I get to Final Fantasy and Atelier, it's gonna be like a gigantic task. So yeah, that those two were interesting to go through, especially with Tales because like they really should do a Tales of Graces F like Switch 2 upgrade. Like that game deserves it. Like it feels so snappy and responsive on everything. And on Switch you have it running at a lower frame rate than like the Wii original. So that's disappointing. And yeah, like I said with Symphonia, there's no saving that remaster. They just need to get the GameCube version on Nintendo Classics. So
Oh, that'd be. I
that was
didn't think about
Tales.
that. That'd be the ideal way to play it these days, I guess, if they get it there. Fuck.
Yeah, because they have Soul Calibur too, so they clearly are willing to work with Bandai, or Bandai is willing to work with them for the GameCube stuff. So
I mean, that
hopefully
makes
this
sense.
happens. Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. Like Bandai Namco has a really good relationship with Nintendo. They develop Smash. So I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
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 So that was Tales, and then Monster Hunter was I mean, there was some stuff I expected with Monster Hunter because, like, honestly, like when so what happened for those who don't know is Monster Hunter Rise obviously was a Switch exclusive and it came to PC months later. But what happened with Sunbreak is that was the simultaneous launch on Switch and Steam. And most people who I played Rise with moved to PC at that point. Like James did as well, I think. So, like in my case, I still played on Switch because like that had like no region locked matchmaking. Everything was good except like performance was not great. So that was my maximum playtime for Rise across all platforms is on Switch. So I was hoping, like Flooded Forest and these like Shagaru Magala and some of the final fights which they added in Sunbreak would be better. And yep, they've improved, but it doesn't look great. So like, oh yeah, the other thing with these features is to like just mention some things on what I'd like to see in potential Switch 2 updates. So yeah, I spoke about that. Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate is still a bit disappointing because like that could easily run at 60 FPS on the Switch one, but you're still stuck to 30 on this. So that's like I mentioned, hopefully like anniversary coming up, Capcom do something. I don't expect it, but even getting it just on Steam would be like good enough because that game deserves to not be stuck at 30 FPS. And I think Stories 2 is the big winner on backward compatibility for Monster Hunter because that went from like sometimes dropping to like the low 20s to now just being like more or less 60 FPS. So that's like a very good way to experience that game now. And yeah, that was basically what that was. And I'll have some, maybe like two more of them this week, depending on how time goes. So yeah.
How many
Yeah.
memory cards have you filled up with with Switch games on
I
Switch
I just
2?
got my I just got my SD card express today through a friend and I filled it up like 3 hours later and I had to start deleting stuff again. So yeah, 256 internal 256 SD card is not enough for my use case. I think I'm gonna wait until a 1 TB card drops below $100 and just buy that because like my 1 TB card on my Switch OLED is full. So like Switch 2 is obviously gonna get filled up faster with games being bigger. So yeah.
It
At
seems
least
like
the downloads are good though. At least the download speed is good on Wi-Fi and wired. Like the OLED used to take like it used to take me like 1 hour to download small games like Hades. And on the Switch 2, it's like in a few minutes. So I'm glad they fixed that at least.
It's when I was doing some research on like it's which Switch One games were like kind of quote unquote the biggest winners in terms of like backwards compatibility and now running at like a smooth 60 FPS. Like the titles that I saw consistently were Fire Emblem Warriors Three Hopes, which now I do want to get eventually now that it runs 60
Yep.
uh consistently on Switch 2. Bayonetta 3 I've played before, but it's good to see that it's finally reached a smooth 60 FPS with that.
Wanna know some?
Darksiders 3 was brought up a lot on that, and Dragon Quest Builders 2 with the caveat that the inherent caveat is like obviously the more busier custom built cities some players make
And that's a
will
problem with
dip,
pretty
yeah,
much
yeah,
any
and everything,
system.
yeah.
Yeah.
But other than that, it seems to be running
And
awesome.
and that's mostly a problem with the game being majority like single threaded. So like no
Yeah,
matter what system, you're gonna run into that issue. One thing I saw posted a few days ago was actually from the old the director of Bayonetta Origins said that when they were developing that game, originally there wasn't a frame rate cap. So before they gave it a 30 FPS frame rate cap, it was around 40 to 45 FPS, which means that if they had an option in the game to uncap the frame rate, it would be 60 on Switch 2, but that's never going to happen now. And that is so
that's
disappointing.
man, that's freaking dang. That's a bummer. Fuck.
And then one final preview that we have a bunch of them this week that we have on the site, is we got the rare byline from Kite Steinbeck that isn't a news post. So he does really good covering Japanese, Chinese, Asian news for us on the site. But he wrote up a preview of the recently released Nioh 3 alpha demo. So kind of one thing that was announced just at the very start of the Summer Game Fest kind of weekend stuff. So a demo that I was interested in. We kind of talked about how it was announced as being, a more open world compared to the previous games, which are very menu based. So Kite was, a big fan of the series and decided to jump into the alpha preview. So I have not read it. You might be able to tell that I'm speaking around it, but a game that I'm very interested in. I'll probably read it.
You can tell that Kite's a big nerd for this sort of stuff because he's like, well, Nioh 1 and 2 pretty much told the story of the Warring States period already, but Wolong there's more stuff to tell about the Three Kingdoms era.
Yeah,
But
Kite's also historical stuff.
I was expecting more Wolong, but we get more Nioh instead. That's interesting. like even before he gets into like the gameplay stuff, he's like all nerding out about the historical like semi-history stuff about these games. So
Yeah, he's very good about that. Like with Dynasty Warriors, also for example, he's
I
very
wouldn't know
just.
about the traitor Akechi Mitsuhide without Neo 2. This is how I learned.
But yeah, I've heard similar sentiments that from other players who played the Neo 3 Alpha. I didn't have time to get to it, but where they split up the weapons now between the samurai and ninja styles because now they have like they've it's kind of like almost a style switch almost that you're kind of forced to interact with, and people don't like that. Like, hey, there are some weapon types that can only be used in one of these, and they felt like the ninja style, for example, was very underwhelming compared to the samurai style because the ninja style can't keep pulse. So it's kind of a weird the way that you have to play ninja uh feels unintuitive compared to like how Neo wants you to play. But I heard in general, like some of the bosses in this alpha demo like did not fuck around. People got their asses kicked in this demo. So I'll have, like, but this is good that once again Team Ninja is very consistent about releasing alpha demos of these upcoming games early to take this feedback early and adjust around it. They're so good at scheduling um, these tests in a way that when they get player feedback, they can make meaningful changes to the final product. So they actually give themselves like a decent timetable of like, hey, what did you like and what did you dislike about this? Okay, we kind of have a good idea now of what our players want from this game, and we can design around it. Like, obviously it won't be like obviously catering to everyone's needs, but enough of a way to be like we're not going in the wrong direction entirely.
And that kind of covers it for all the different previews, console reports, reviews in terms of Raidou Remastered. all up on the site. So if you go to, again, the rpgsite.net page and hit the articles button, you should be able to see all of those from the last week. No big headline news this week, as I said earlier, but we do have some pretty key follow-ups to news discussions that we had in previous weeks, as well as a few shifts for some upcoming dates. And here's kind of a big one. So we earlier this year we had the big announcement of the English localization of Kai no Kaseki under the name Legend of Heroes Trails Beyond the Horizon. It was announced for a fall 2025 release. Of course, we kind of talked about that being in a similar release schedule for Western audiences specifically, as the upcoming Trails in the Sky first chapter, of course, are being handled by different publishers. But Legend of Heroes Trails Beyond the Horizon has announced two things. They've announced that they're going to have a Switch 2 version in addition to PC, Switch, PlayStation. But they've also announced that it's going to be pushed back to January 2026. So for us in the West, we're going to get first chapter in September and then Trails Beyond the Horizon next year in 2026. Trade off being it'll have a Switch 2 version. Here's where I hand it off to James.
So obviously the delay and the Switch 2 version are the two headline bits of news from this announcement. And I don't think the delay is really a problem. It's like it gives them some extra time to work on the editing. I don't think it's going to have any impact on like the actual translation of the next game in the series. It's still probably going to be a lot quicker than any other like of the Trails games that Nisa has done, because we haven't even gotten the next Trails game announced. So theoretically, they could start translating it as soon as like Falcom announces it, because like
Mhm.
the actual base translation for this is probably already done. It's probably just the editing, making sure the dub's ready, all that sort of stuff. I wouldn't be shocked if the only reason why it was delayed was to make sure that the Switch 2 version port was day and date, and because Trails Beyond the Horizon is a more niche release, they probably didn't want to have to worry about like marketing it twice instead of once. So this makes sense. I think a Switch 2 port is good because the Switch 1 version of Daybreak 2, from what I can tell, bit rough. I do think that it will be a lot better, and better, certainly better than Steam. Yes, Mikhail?
Yeah, so the thing is, when they announced the Kai no Kiseki Beyond the Horizon, when they announced it was coming to Switch, I don't think a Switch port of that exists at all, does it? Like, as of what we know yet.
No.
So I wasn't sure whether this was going to be one of those things where NIS America gets the port done by Engine Software or someone like that, or whether Falcom is doing it internally. And with the Switch 2 announcement being done by NIS America, but with Kondo, doing the announcement as well, we still don't know who's developing both of these versions now. So is it both being done by Falcom? Is one of them being done by Falcom, one of them being externally ported? So I don't know. I wish we had some info on this, because while Daybreak 1 and Daybreak 2 were done by Falcom, they are pretty rough on Switch. Like
Yeah.
easily the worst version of the game. Like I mean, if you have no other option to play it, I mean, like most of us played Cold Steel 1 and 2 on Vita, so like it's like around that experience, but I don't know what to
Yeah.
expect with this one. Like both you and I have been very vocal about how dumb the Switch 2 pricing and how they're handling that is, but like
Yeah,
I'll let
let
you
me
take
let
the
me let
lead
me
on that.
talk about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So the big thing that people are talking about with this announcement isn't so much the Switch 2 port being announced. Everyone is fine with it coming to Switch 2. That's a good thing. That's not the problem. The problem is that we have it confirmed that the Switch 2 version is $10 more expensive than every other version of the game, which, if it was on a proper game card, that would be one thing, because we've heard more than enough to assume, not even to assume, we've heard more than enough to know that the previous rumor that the only actual game cards available to developers is the 64 gigabyte ones, which are super expensive, which makes it much harder to make a profit. If that was what was happening here, if it was on an actual game card and it was $10 more expensive on Switch 2, people are going to complain no matter what, but at least it would be justifiable. But no, it's $10 more expensive, and it's on a key card, which doesn't have any of the game data on the cartridge. It's like, Nisa, pick a lane. You can either have it be $10 more expensive, or you can have it be a key card. Doing both is greedy, and literally everyone is upset at them about this for good reason. What's your fucking problem?
It's
Ivalice is a scam.
Look, it's the people's voices are being heard. Like they're demonstrating their disagreement with this because on the Nisa official store, the stock on the Switch 2 limited edition for Trails Beyond the Horizon is still at 100%, while the PS5 version is like at 5% stock. So, people are letting them know you fucked up really hard. We're not buying your shit on Switch. So
I think is it too late for them to course correct this and just like, oh, here comes the game in the cart in the future? Do you think they'll do that?
Maybe not. I mean, if it's in January, that's like 7 months from now, so maybe, but I don't think so because frankly, this is clearly a management decision. Very clearly.
I think it's from the Japanese side. It's not from the.
Well, I don't know if it's NISJ. I don't know if it's NIS America. I don't know. It could technically be Falcom. It could be something they mandated. We don't know. But it's very clearly a management decision. Because I know enough people at NISA and people that used to be at NISA to know that the actual like rank and file workers could have seen this backlash coming a mile away, and I'm sure that they voiced their concerns and they were ignored. This is management. Now, whether again it's from the Western side or the Japanese side, it doesn't matter. I feel terrible for the NISA employees that knew this was going to happen and were ignored because this is not fair to them, and they are going to be tanking the majority of the complaints when it's not their fault. And man, this whole situation just fucking sucks.
I think the bigger issue is like if you look at what they did with the Switch 1, Disgaea 5 Complete was like such a big release at that point. It was like the first time the game was portable, everything on cartridge. It was like a nice, I think that was like one of the few releases NIS did where the game was universal build, so you could import the Japanese version. And I know so many people who played that game just over there because they played the previous games on Vita and Disgaea 5 was just on PS5, and I forgot if it was on PC first or PC later, but yeah, it was just on PS4. Sorry, PS4 back then. And now you have Disgaea 7 Complete, like we spoke about that already. And instead of like celebrating, you're getting a new, good portable version. All the discussion online is now just going to be complaining about the key cards and everything NIS posts. Like, I feel bad for their social people because if they post about East 10, people are going to ask about Proud Nordics. If they post about Disgaea 7 Complete, it's going to be asking about why the other platforms are not getting the patch and the key card. And now for Horizon, it's just going to be the key card thing again. So rough time for them.
yeah, I went to go check the stock on the Disgaea 7 Complete Edition on eShop, and sure thing, 100% stock still. So no one's biting.
I
so
mean, and it's not surprising because the thing is that if you even know about NIS America's store, you are an informed consumer, so
Yeah.
you know about key cards. And you
Right.
and if you're interested in getting a limited edition of a game through a publisher's online store, you want the fucking physical copy, not a key card.
Yeah, I'm hoping this at least it can start a conversation internally, whether it's with the other branches or wherever it needs to go. Internally, start a discussion about like, hey, what are we doing wrong? Why is this happening? You have data, but like when you have hard numbers to present to management, that's usually the biggest like way you can convince them is there are numbers, and it's affecting our financials.
One thing I'm gonna ask, I might be going crazy, but maybe I'm just misremembering this, but I'm noticing on their store they're listing for the Nintendo Switch 2 pre-orders like in like specifically that they're game key cards. Like I want to say they didn't have that distinction in the title of the listings when they first went up. I want to say that was added. I could be wrong, but because I know I looked at both these listings before and I don't remember them saying game key cards. I just remember people knowing because you could see the actual box art in the listed images. Am I
I'll
going
have to
crazy?
check because I definitely took screenshots of this But I was sending it to like a friend of mine who was excited about this, and I was
Wait,
like,
wait, wait, wait.
"Enjoy your key card."
I posted about it on Blue Sky. I can actually check to see because I
Yeah.
posted about the Switch 2 one. Let me see. Let me scroll. Yeah, no, this is new. They didn't have game key card in the listing itself. That's
Interesting.
interesting. Maybe that means I wonder
Yeah.
if that means that they're thinking about having SKUs that have the actual game card because
I would I wonder if they haven't produced any of these yet, like then they're just taking like pre-order numbers before producing them and producing them to however many years pre-orders. I wonder if there is still a path forward of like, hey, do we just tank it and offer it directly? Put the
Here,
data on the
I
on the
want.
on the on the cartridge if they haven't ordered
I wonder if
anything
that.
yet.
Yeah, I wonder if they could somehow bundle in it some like I don't know if this is scummy or not. If they would be like, here's a limited edition where we give you the full game on a cartridge, maybe a different box art, so that I don't know to not have that key card stamp on it, and then maybe throw in I don't know a keychain.
Yeah,
or
I don't know
something.
how the logistics work out on this, especially on like production wise, because like it's still January 2026, but you have to plan for this months in advance. So I don't know what
Mhm.
the
I
production
think
logistics are.
yeah, I think if anything, Disguise 7 Complete, I don't think they can fix it. But
Yeah,
Trails Beyond Horizons, that's January. That's 7 months from now. There if either of the two they could course correct, it would be that one.
yeah. Imagine. We'll see. We'll see if the Nisa will say anything about this in the next few months. I wonder if they have an Anime Expo panel. If I don't know if they do yet or not. I don't know if they announced
I
anything.
don't think they have a panel, but I'm trying to see like if there's like Anime Expo Entertainment Hall.
Because Anime Expo is not that far away. It's only several weeks from now. But if they do, or even if they have a presence there, I assume they have a presence there.
We don't know for sure. They aren't in the exhibitor listing, but the last couple of years they've been in the entertainment hall, and the entertainment hall exhibitor list hasn't been announced yet.
Okay, so
I
yeah,
would
if
be
they
shocked if they're not at the entertainment hall because they get a lot of foot traffic for their store, and I'm sure that they want
they
to
want to
be
keep their
there.
space.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's like I'm sure they'll be there, but we just don't actually know yet.
but if they
So
are, I assume that concerned fans and consumers will voice their complaints on what
Mhm.
they're doing with this. The Nisa crowd is usually local and vocal, which is it's good for them to especially voice their stuff on stuff like this isn't fair to physical owners at all.
yeah, I think the one and like major takeaway is what the hell did I think was gonna happen? Like
Yeah,
as like people that are into Nisa games, they know about this stuff. People that want to get limited editions, they know and care about this stuff.
You had to be a
Anyone
pretty
could have seen
hardcore
this coming.
fan
Yeah,
before you
anyone
start
could see
buying
this
that.
coming.
yeah. Unfortunately, when the parent, if it's coming from the parent company in Japan, you cannot say no. So that is the one silver lining. Is like when if it's a mandate from your parent, the parent branch, you have very little say in it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how it goes. I mean, if it
Yeah,
bombs, it sends them a message. Maybe people
yeah.
start gonna switch it off. I don't know.
And hopefully we'll see how the numbers shake out on this on the long run. But if there's enough pushback on game key cards in general to from other third parties too, see like I said, the only thing that will move these companies is numbers. So uh,
I mean, it's already
that is very
kind of
important.
hurting them in some places. People say that like game key cards has been selling like, way less than their lowest expectations from business insiders. At least that's what they say.
We
But
Well, we'll
don't
see.
we don't know
Yeah.
if that's a game key cards itself
Yeah,
specifically though.
because
It's
remember, Chow, a good chunk of these third-party releases on Switch 2 are games that have been out for a long time already, like Yakuza 0, for example, Cyberpunk. Like, oh, the Cyberpunk is like the whole game's on on the thing, but other Sonic X Shadow generations, like these games
yeah,
have
not to
already been out for
mention
months,
like
just years.
arguably the new Switch to Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 port is the second worst version of that game because it doesn't have crossplay. It doesn't have crossplay with the Switch version or any of the other versions. So unless you're talking about like the Xbox version, which nobody's playing that shit online, you're not gonna have like people playing online for like the Switch 2 exclusive version of Puyo Puyo Tetris 2.
Yeah,
Why would you pick that up?
the average consumer on Switch 2 physical does not really give a shit about like game key cards, like just the average Joe out there.
Yeah, we don't know for sure, but that is probably true.
Talking about like these are the people who like do still think that the Wii U is still an attachment to the Wii, that it's not its own system. Like, I'm talking about like the vast majority average Joe consumer, not the super online people who research this.
like us, I know, but I got like average Joe comparison. They'll be one of those guys that would buy one of these, and they'll get so frustrated, and they'll do their research after that. It'll be like my cousin; he'll be like buying that Kingdom Hearts free on Switch. It's like, yes, I can finally play it, and then you play it. It's like, wait, this is like cloud. What the fuck is this shit?
Yeah, I do wonder, like for consumers that have like relatively slower, weaker internet connections, when they get a game key card and go, hey, why is this cartridge that I bought downloading this game instead of like, why can't I boot up this game right away? And that's how they get informed about the difference between like the game data on the cartridge and a game key card. Maybe that'll be the that'll get those people and more informed, because hey, why am I downloading this game that I'm gonna insert the cartridge into? So we'll see. The stuff will take time to shake out.
I think
And
I'm
then
just
I'll
going to use
skip
this
ahead.
chance to bring up that physical RPGs complete on cartridge feature, which I'm maintaining,
Yeah, good shout.
which unfortunately isn't getting updated as often as I hope it would be because no one's announcing physical proper cartridge releases. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Nobody wants to take the cut.
it's dire, but I do think we're gonna see at least some some more companies push games on like actual cartridges. And to be clear, I mentioned it in passing that for all accounts, as far as we can tell, the main problem is that there's only the 64 gigabyte cards, and I think like the number that's been going around is that the cost of just the cartridge, not the royalties, not the retail fees, and any of that other stuff that's going to eat into the profit margins, just for the cartridge right now is like 17 bucks. So for knowing that context, for something like Bravely Default, which they're selling at 40 bucks, I dislike it, but I completely understand why that's a game key card, because you'd be losing money probably if you tried to sell it on like an actual cartridge. If the $17 thing is accurate, which again, other people in this call know that I have a good reason for believing it, but I can't exactly say why because I don't want to throw someone under the bus. But it's like, it seems like those rumors are accurate from what we can see. So it's like like publishers are stuck between a rock and a hard place. The main reason I'm upset about the Nisa stuff is because they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. It's like, either raise the price or go a game key card. Don't do both. God.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, in a different piece of news but related, obviously you talked in passing about Trails in the Sky First Chapter, of course, big release coming out in September, and they are big into the marketing cycle for that on both the Falcom and the Gung Ho English side for it. We're getting regular trailers both for the cast from Gung Ho side for the English VAs, for the Seiyu from the Japanese VAs. On the English side, at least we're getting some introductions to some of the minor characters, as well as the different regions of the game. We've got trailers for Roland and Bose. And then on the Japanese side, we've got a character trailer for Shira Harvey, Silver Streak, which means we'll probably get it from the Gung Ho side within a few days. It usually just lags behind just a little bit. But long story short, we're getting lots of very quick, brief, rapid fire trailers for this game, usually focusing on the VAs on both sides. I don't know the English cast well enough to say like how many of these are recasts or not, but I didn't realize.
Shara is Michelle Ruff. I know that.
Yeah, but we haven't gotten the actual Shara character trailer from Gung Ho yet. I don't think, though. We
It seems
do
like
have
a day or two behind. Like they're usually a little bit later, but not too
right.
far later.
Oh, but we do have the character page on Gung Ho's website in English saying with Michelle Ruff. Yeah, but I didn't realize Cassius was Kyle Herbert, who is like Gohan.
Yeah,
Oh,
and a
he's
few
the
other things.
eccentric narrator. It's like, oh, what
Yeah.
happened to Krillin?
Yes.
I'll say that, like, hey, good job to Gung Ho and Falcon for being able to at least, like, it's not one-to-one parody in terms of marketing timing, but they're doing it pretty damn close. Good job on at least trying to keep up pace with how they're marketing it in Japan. I'll give them props there.
And it's fun just to see the different cities. Like even though they call it the Roland trailer or the Bose trailer, it shows a little bit of the city and then it focuses on the characters they meet in that place.
Yeah.
So it's focused more on the characters, but it is just still I don't want to take it for granted. Like, damn, they fully realized the whole liberal region for this game, and the art style is very good to look at, and the character art's as good as ever. It's just still a little bit of a damn, they actually did it. I know it's. And it showed up in a unsung in a Nintendo Direct, however many months ago. But it's June now, and we'll be playing this in September. I was
Well,
actually looking at my Steam account and being like, should I replay this just so I can have like the direct apples to apples comparison? Play the original version, not the original version, but the version available on Steam. Um, I don't know if I will, but it'd be a fun experiment to see how faithful it is. Go ahead, Josh.
the last time we got like a quote unquote fully realized version of like these locales in this arc is like that shoddy anime adaptation of Trails in the Sky years ago. So for people who've seen it or know about it, it wasn't great, but we took what we got at that time, and now it's like, whoa, we're in the future now.
Never seen it. The only thing I know is the infamous meme where Walter just kicks Estelle when she's trying to attack him.
Yeah.
All right, then the next one is kind of updates on a game that we had a few questions about ever since it was announced back at the Sony State of Play, right at the beginning of Summer Game Fest. This is the upcoming Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles. We talked about how, based on the webpage, based on the information that we could glean at the time, it didn't seem like it was going to have a lot of the War of the Lions content except the script. We talked about how it has the classic version and the enhanced version, that one would have voice acting and one wouldn't. We kind of got some of those details ironed out, stapled down through both some Twitter posts from Yasumi Matsuno, as well as something that Square Enix has published from director, let me make sure I get the right name here, Kazutoyo Mahiro. So first of all, I'll go with Matsuno's Twitter post, basically talking about the script and how he has described it. I think is what people gleaned, but just kind of putting it to bed, is that if you play the classic version in English, you will get the War of the Lions script. If you play the enhanced version, that's the version new to this remaster, you'll get a newly translated version from the new Japanese script. In Japanese, you'll get a new script if you play enhanced, and you'll get the original PlayStation 1 script if you play it in classic. So there you go. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing, but your script does indeed depend on the version that you select in game.
Kind of doesn't make any sense to me. So you saying that it uses the War of the Lions script?
In English, if you play in classic, that's it.
But then, then whether you have the War of the Lion contents, it sounds like they just drag the ROM or something like that.
Yeah, that's the second piece, is that Square Enix put in like I don't know if you call this an interview or an FAQ, but they published this on their blog talking about what they their mindset going into the remaster, and we have it posted, the relevant excerpts on our site. Mikhail put the news post together about why did they decide to focus on the original Final Fantasy Tactics rather than War of the Lions? And not Mahiro, gave some lengthy answers to this, but it feels like it's kind of the same stance that they took for the Pixel remasters, where they said, like, we like the War of the Lions content, we have no issues with it, but we just feel like we want to bring the original Final Fantasy Tactics to a new generation of players. It's one of those things where it doesn't quite follow. They just basically said, this is what we wanted to do. It was a complete game before that content. It's a complete game after that content. So that's what we decided to focus on. We wanted to bring an experience.
Go for
Go
it.
ahead.
Sorry, David.
I was going to say, yeah, the team was passionate about bringing an experience as close to the original as we could. Therefore, we have recreated and used the original voice sound effects, and they're not including the Luzo stuff, the Balthier stuff, the Dark Knight, the Onion Knight. They
Don't
also
forget the quest. It's a
I
quest to
don't
get the
remember.
lipstick.
Yeah. But they also talked about not having the master data of the original game. Like that's something we've heard from Square Enix constantly about, like, for instance, when they re-released the original Final Fantasy VII, they had to like back create it, reverse engineer it from the PC port originally because they don't have the original master. And apparently that same problem hindered them here as well, where they don't have the original master from the original PS1 game, and they had to kind of back create it from whatever assets or re-release of information that they had available. So unfortunately not a new thing to hear from Square Enix in terms of just not just Square Enix, just in general back in those days, preservation of the original game files, game script, game code just wasn't seen as a priority, and a lot of that was lost.
So there's like really weird, frustrating elements about like almost every step of this process, in my opinion. Where, so they're basing the new translation on War of the Lions, and like the new like modified script for the enhanced mode is like, it makes sense because they have to take into account voice acting, and the way that you
Mhm.
would structure lines for to take into account voice acting is fundamentally different than how you would write a script without voice acting on that, because when you take into account voice acting, those have to sound natural with interactions. So naturally, the way that you would write for those is different. So that the enhanced mode scripts make sense. The classic mode stuff is a little bit weird because they're basing it off of like the PS1 version for Japanese and War of the Lions for English. But the PS1 original script of FFT wasn't like, it was pretty rough in today's standards because they were working with a lot of limitations, scheduling wise and knowledge, not technology wise, on that front. But you've heard a lot of like anecdotes coming out of that, because like when you're trying to fit English characters onto like a Japanese character limit, very very tough. So you have to kind of abbreviate a lot of like the English lines to account for the character limit on that end, while you're able to express more complex like um, interactions in lesser characters in Japanese compared to English characters and the way that we express language. That makes sense. So I get it on that front. But then you're talking about like stuff like, hey, we looked at the War of the Lion stuff, like the new classes and the cameo characters, and we looked at that, and we're like, nah, let's not do it. But we're still gonna add on new stuff like new interactions, and we're gonna call it the definitive version. And it's like, I would rather if you're trying to market this game and try to make it sound graceful to the audience, in my opinion, you should have just said, hey, we lost the master data, and we decided based on like the resources and the scheduling, it'd be more efficient to focus on remaking the stuff that was in the PS1 version, because we didn't have the time and resources to go further into that with the War of the Lion stuff, because that would push the schedule back even more, and we just didn't want to push the schedule back even more on that. Like, I would be willing to accept that more than what they've done here. On like they've kind of structured this measure in a way that like kind of pisses off everyone to different in different on different levels. Like anyone who would be interested in this is kind of at least a little bit pissed off because of the way they've kind of conveyed this new re-release of Final Fantasy Tactics. It's kind of annoying on like in multiple ways, and the ways that it's annoying is different for everyone depending on how they played this game.
I'm fine with whatever they do, as long as they don't nerf Sid. It's game of the year. If
But
they nerf Sid,
what if they nerf Sid? What if they're just like,
it's
we don't feel
1 out of 10. 1 out of 10.
Okay, Mikhail, you wanted to talk, so go for it.
Yeah, this just reminds me of the Lunar Remastered collection where you have like a mobile port which has so many features and visual upgrades over what they like the new release which they did on consoles and PC. So if someone asks me what's the definitive version of Lunar, like I'd say the most accessible version is not the best one now, sadly. And now with Tactics, you're gonna have War of the Lions, which is available on iOS and Android, but you don't get that content now in the Ivalice Chronicles, which is more expensive and accessible on more platforms. So It's just annoying now what Square Enix has done with this. Like you said, right? It just annoys everyone in different ways. This is how it's annoying me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when you showed me a picture of that Lunar mobile, I was like, it had all this stuff. It's like, what the hell am I living in, a rock? It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, they have like a bazillion features for like visuals and like tweaking the CRT filter, so many options,
yeah,
stretching,
and you have like
no
new
stretching and all that.
translation, old translation.
Yeah.
It's like, what? It's like, oh, didn't even put that much effort in there. It's just like, oh my god.
Hopefully more effort into the Trails PC port, but we'll leave that for another conversation.
So yeah, I mean, I'm sure it'll release, it'll still just do fine. If so, people will still like fall in love with it all over again, and people who are new to it will, I just to see what they like about it. If they still it resonates with them, it's still a really really fantastic game, just the core of the game. But it's just like just like with the Pixel remasters before it, it's like there were previous releases that had more game to it that like maybe you weren't a fan of, maybe you were, but like you're basically getting less of what they previously released at a higher price.
Um,
Is the core is kind of the facts of it.
I was gonna ask, do you remember in the Pixel remaster, did people give people shit to those games for not having the GBA content added to it?
Absolutely, 10,000%. Yes, of course. Yeah, people voice their discontent with it. We voiced our discontent with it. There's not like selectively like cherry picking. It's like no, people definitely voiced their concerns and did not like their decision to do that, us included. We were like, it sucks that they're doing this. Which is the same thing here.
It's one of those things where the added content doesn't make or break the game, but it's just a little bit like, like I kind of
Like you already
liked it. It was
did this, you could have just simply added it.
Yeah, and like I said, like if they get it's like if they conveyed a more like if they just conveyed, hey, we lost all this data and we don't have the resources to remake this and still release it this year, that would be fair. That'd be a better explanation than oh, we took a look at it but we didn't like it and we're adding new stuff but not this. It's like, okay, great, thanks.
yeah. So we have both of those, the little FAQ that Square Enix released, as well as a quick post talking about Matsuno going on social media and clarifying for the scripts. Both news stories are on the site. A few other small updates. Fantasy Life I is going to get a DLC adding a roguelike open world mode. Uh, I am not. I'm only like 2 hours into Fantasy Life I, so I don't really know like how big of like this seems kind of a little bit out of nowhere for a massive free update for this game. I don't know those like Mikhail or Josh who put a ton of time into this. How much does this headline excite you?
I'm psyched. I don't know about you, Miguel, but like hell yeah, like you're adding like even more progression elements in like into the open world and like kind of giving us like it really depends on like what how it manifests. But the everything that they've done in this game, like in terms of like what you get for investing your time in it, is always like gratifying and rewarding. Like being able, I wonder like how much you're able to like bring with you in this roguelike open world um feature that they're teasing. It's hard to really kind of get a feel for it because they haven't gone into specifics about it. But if it gives you an incentive to like, hey, do multiplayer in the open world, and like all have a common goal to strive for, and you're all getting like different modifiers uh throughout this roguelike mode, and it feels refreshing like going through it because of the way that you're getting modifiers in it. It could be really, really, really satisfying, especially in multiplayer. It seems like they're already teasing multiplayer support based on the artwork for it, and you can already do multiplayer in the open world section in this game. So it all depends on the execution, the way it manifests. But I'm already kind of like, okay, sure, let's do it. Like I'm interested on getting on the ride on wherever you want to take me. You've earned my trust. Um, uh, Please continue doing more great work. I guess.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it as well. I haven't had time to play much of it except for just checking out the updates which they keep releasing. But I'm like everyone I know who bought the game when it came out on Switch 2 or like a few weeks prior on like other platforms. Everyone's still chipping away at it. I still see people like I think I've seen more people playing Fantasy Life on my PlayStation and Switch list than like anything else in the last 2 weeks. So obviously like small sample size, but I'm happy to see that. So
Mouth is really spreading, and like it is a pretty lengthy game. So yeah, I don't know what to expect. Hopefully they show more in the coming weeks. It's exciting to see that this game continues to get supported, and they continue to like release much requested features in a timely manner. Like we talked about the camera mod, and like everyone responded. It's like, oh, thank God they're fixing the camera. Um, it's cool.
I think all of the remaining bits on this podcast are quick little updates, sales updates. And here's the announcement of a physical edition of a game that we thought pretty highly of back in January. So, Ender Magnolia Bloom in the Mist is going to get a physical edition announced by Clear River Games for Switch, PS4, and PS5. I am not familiar with Clear River Games. I assume they occupy a similar space as like limited run games, but I don't know if people.
I
Go ahead.
think, well, Limited Run is Embracer. I think Clear River is also Embracer to some degree.
that's correct. That's correct.
The reason why I ask is
So
I'm not
Clear
much of a
River,
physical person, so when I see this, I'm like, I'm not excited for this, but I know a lot of people would be. But I know if that said by limited run games, people would be groaning like, not limited run. But if it says Clear River Games, is there any baggage with that, or is it like, oh hell yeah? I just don't know.
it's a little weird because when the Embracer stuff happened with Limited Run and Clear River, so some background. Do you remember when Ease Origins Switch release was done by Limited Run Games in North America? So at the time, Clear River Games, I don't know who owned them at that time or whether it was always under Embracer, but I remember that Clear River Games, their release of Ease Origin was actually cheaper to buy and it was available worldwide before Limited Run Games, the edition which they had taken like pre-orders for like well before, had even begun to ship. And at this point, I started looking into what Clear River was doing, and I noticed they were doing physical releases of some of the titles Limited Run did. And they actually sell the stuff in stores normally. It's no FOMO nonsense. So I was like, okay, this is good. So when the deal happened, I thought, Limited Run Games has awful reach outside, literally outside America. It's not outside USA specifically. It's not even like they're good in Canada. They just like, it's just a waste of money buying stuff from them in most cases. So when this happened, I thought, use Clear River's distribution to get your stuff everywhere. But that never happened. So when this announcement happened that they were doing it, I was very happy because I skipped the Japanese release, and knowing that they're doing it, I know it's going to be available everywhere soon. And I believe Limited Run Games has announced something for North America specifically, but no date or anything for that. So yeah, long story short, Clear River Games is very good with their releases in my experience. I've bought at least 5 or 6 games from them in the last few years on Switch and PS5. So this is like I can just buy it like whenever it shows up over here. I don't need to worry about pre-ordering it. So it's a good thing.
And that the pre-orders for that uh physical edition of Ender Magnolia Bloom in the Myth will be available on June 24th. There's also a deluxe edition which includes an art book and an original soundtrack CD. The deluxe edition says it'll ship in October, but that might be a placeholder. We don't know. With that, we'll go into some sales updates. We'll start with some of the ones that were just announced sales updates for some recent games. We talked about over the last couple of weeks of the podcast two pretty different titles. Of course, Stellar Blade made its way to PC, and then Lies of P had its Overture DLC shadow dropped over the Summer Game Fest window. And both of those games have hit 3 million copies sold. So Stellar Blade across console release and its recent PC release. And then Lies of P, of course, it was a DLC, not a port, but has also hit the 3 million sales threshold. So we've got both of those up on the site talking about them both hitting that 3 million sales mark. And then I might hand this next one over to
Hold on,
Adam.
before we go there,
Mm.
I just want to mention
Okay.
that I recently bought Lies of P because $30 on, I believe, Fanatical.
Mhm.
And I was like, I should probably go play that game and over the Overture DLC before end of the year talks happen. I
Mhm.
have a feeling, so I
Mm.
need to find time this year to
Yep,
get
it's
around
really
to doing
good.
that as DLC. I've heard like I seriously have heard universal praise for the Eliza P DLC. I've everyone who's played it, it's like this is like phenomenal, and I'm like, okay, I need to see this thing. I need to see this thing. So whenever I have time this year, I will get around to this.
Yeah, thankfully it's not too long though. It might. It was easier for me to get through it because I literally was fresh off a playthrough, so I didn't have to
Yeah.
relearn stuff. I do know a lot of friends of mine have been like, "Oh man, this first area is kicking my ass. I don't remember how to play this game."
Well, maybe not exact same game, but Josh has played first Berserker Kazan before they nerfed it, so he's all right.
That's right. Yeah, and I'm a god gamer, and I still have more Souls likes to get to, and I've already played a handful of others. So it's okay. I'm good to go. I still have the youth in me to continue rolling and parrying in games.
There you go. And then for this next one, I'm going to hand it off to Adam because you were the one that kind of put this all together about Atlas and Sega sales updates. My understanding is that some of this was intentional, but then some of this might not have been in terms of updates for some sales figures across multiple titles in their portfolio.
Okay, first I want to clarify where this came from. This I don't know why this sort of stuff kind of bothers me. Where like it's a fiscal report, like well yeah it's a fiscal report, but kind of not really. So Sega Sammy, which is Sega's parent company, they do not only Sega but also a lot of the entertainment resort, arcade, pachinko stuff. But they had a management meeting in the summer. The summertime is when you get a lot of like meetings like this, which like investor shareholder meetings, management meetings, things that are a little bit outside of the usual fiscal year cadence because the fiscal year just ended. You're just starting a new one. So oftentimes you get these sort of meetings at this point in the year. It's posted on the investor relations website, but it's sort of separate from the usual like quarter one, quarter two, quarter three cadence. Anyways, it's from a management meeting slides. So this is a meeting that was held on June 18th, so just a couple days ago, where presumably management and not investors were discussing their sales and plan. They're in the middle of their medium-term plan, which is a 3-year period, and all that. And so they posted this document, and this document goes over a lot of things. Most of it is stuff they've said before, but there are a few nuggets of information that are new. One that was more obvious and evident and shared was Metaphor Refantazio has hit 2 million units sold. We don't know when it hit it. It just listed it's at 2 million. And that's new information. That was never announced publicly before now. I believe when the game was launched, like literally on the day it was released, they said it was already at 1 million. Like they had 1 million pre-orders or launch day sales.
So, pretty good for a brand new IP. Pretty
Yeah,
good
2 million.
in that time
Yeah.
span.
I mean, that's rumored, but Rebirth has hit, right? We don't know. Square Enix has never officially announced Rebirth sales.
Insane, really, but
But anyways, second, they're going over their like release calendar. Like the games they're focusing on this fiscal year are Raidou, which just came out, Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, which is coming out later this year, and then also Football Manager from their European side. That game is a big game for them, and especially because they is that the one they delayed last year? Like they just skipped a year.
They
Right.
skipped a year.
Yeah.
So that's going to be that's looking to be probably a pretty significant release for them. And then they basically said some of our other games that we've announced, like Persona 4 Revival and Stranger Than Heaven, are coming out either next fiscal year or the year after that. So the short of it is the actual utility there is they're coming out after April 2026 because they're not this fiscal year, which maybe isn't too surprising. Some people might have expected Persona 4 Revival like next spring, but based on the fact that they barely showed anything when they announced it, I don't know. I'm not too surprised that it's a little later than that, based because they barely showed it.
It's not like Persona 3 Reload. So anyone who's like expecting like Persona 3 Reload's cadence of like announcing it and then it coming out like next winter, like at the beginning of the year, it's
that had a much more fully fleshed announcement.
yeah.
And then the weird part of this slide was slide 25. Basically, on the uploaded version to the investor relation website, it basically has a gray box, and I don't have it in front of me, but it basically said like some of this is under review, like these numbers. And it appears as if this was something that was shared like in person in the meeting, but was redacted for the public document. At least it was supposed to be, or at least that's how it appeared to be. But it wasn't actually redacted. What it basically was, it's just an Excel spreadsheet or a spreadsheet, right? Colored gray, but you can still highlight it like with your cursor. And you can clearly see there are text boxes there that you're highlighting. And what are you going to do when you see that? You're obviously just going to hit Control C and paste it somewhere else and see what you're getting there. And turns out it was basically like lifetime sales for some of their biggest games. That seems like they wasn't supposed to be shared. This is quite literally a case where someone just didn't. It feels very almost like amateur to me. Like, obviously this wasn't going to redact the information if you just color it gray, but it was there. So whatever the case, it's public now, and we got a lot of information about basically Sega's top selling games. For example, we know that, let me pull it up here. We know that Persona 5 Royal has sold life to date 7,250,000 units. And that is just Royal. That includes the original version of Royal and like what they call the remastered version of Royal, which is basically all the ports. That does not include the original Persona 5. Remember there was an original Persona 5?
Yeah, there's PS3 and PS4 releases.
Yeah, and best estimate for that is that it's around 3 million. For reasons we don't have an exact number on it. It has to do with a staggered release of Persona back then. But anyways, comfortably above 10 million Persona 5 combined, 5 and Royal.
This is why you always see Persona 5 everywhere from Sega and Atlus, because it makes the bank. It pays the bills.
Yep. Sonic Frontiers is at 4.5 million. That's not something we'd cover, but that's one of their biggest successes in the last 5 years.
Pretty impressive. And as people are mentioning, like, you know, a lot of like these sales, you know, must be motivated a percentage of like by the success of the movies. Like people really like the Sonic 100%. Movies. Go for it, James.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like one thing that strikes me about all the sales data is that, especially for like stuff like Persona, the tail for the sales has been like super strong. Like by all accounts, it looks like by the end of this fiscal year, like Sonic Frontiers is gonna probably have sold over 5 million copies, which is insane to think about. So,
Adam, on this table for Persona 5 Royal, which fiscal year did it come out on? Like, it came out on multiple platforms. I assume it's fiscal year 23 on the table.
I think fiscal 23. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was October 2022.
Yeah, so that's numbers right there to tell Sega and Atlus, hey, multi-platform good. We should release more on multi-platform, preferably simultaneously. You know, that's those are numbers. The numbers don't lie.
Yakuza Like a Dragon. That's Yakuza 7, the first turn-based game. Its yearly sales are kind of interesting because it's pretty steady. Obviously seemingly like a type of game that people like started with, picking up on sale, picking up as a catalog game, you know, picking it up, and even though the game is several years old now, its lifetime sales are 2.8 million. So that is, you know, just shy of 3 million for Yakuza 7 over time. You know,
yeah,
and that had a weird staggered release too in the West and in Japan, right?
Right.
So there's that in there. Also, Shin Megami Tensei 5 is an interesting one. This combines the original Switch version with the re-release, which is multi-platform. The original Switch version sold almost 1 million in its first year. And then the re-release sold almost 1 million when it came out last year, plus a few in the years between. So it's actually just above 2 million, which I actually saw some people like thinking that was a disappointment. But even with having like a re-release version, I don't know, 2 million for a mainline SMT game, I don't know, felt
Best-selling
unheard
mainline
of.
SMT.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like not that long ago.
Didn't
Yeah,
SMT4 do like 400K or something?
Yeah,
That's
I
it
don't. Yeah,
back then.
so but yeah, so 2 million. Granted, some of that are going to be like me who bought the game twice or whatever.
The,
But
the 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 crazy part is like the gigantic fall off in fiscal year 24 for SMT5 only sold 10,000. That's like abysmal. Like,
yeah,
crazy. Holy crap. That's a gigantic fall off. Unlike say like Yakuza Like a Dragon, which had steady numbers throughout it.
Persona 3 Reload is about 2 million, which is also kind of a milestone that was never announced before. We got the 1 million announcement. It's just about 2 million. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, probably not too surprising that it's not as successful as 7. Sequels, if you will, we've said this before, they almost always do worse for various reasons. It sold 1 million in its first week, and then now it's at about 1.6 million. But it's obviously a newer game, not quite above 2 million.
It does show like clearly between it and Persona 3 Reload, which they basically came out like nearly the same time, just separate about like 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah, so like it's like about 400,000 like behind Persona 3 Reload, but still up there.
Yeah, and Like a Dragon Gaiden is not quite at 1 million.
Hmm. And that was also a Game Pass game as well, Gaiden. So and I don't think
There's
they're not taking Game Pass numbers into account for Gaiden.
I think the Persona 3 Reload legs reminded me of when, they released the demo for it a few months ago, I think, or maybe it was like 2 months ago. And when they released the demo, or maybe it was a little bit longer, you had people saying, why are you releasing a demo now? Like everyone already played it, or it's an old game and stuff. And, these kinds of things get more people interested in your game, because if a game is old and everyone who's going to buy it has bought it already, this will get more people to like try it out and say, oh, this seems pretty good, I should pick it up on sale or I should buy it. So that kind of helps with that. I'm pretty sure stuff like that contributed to why Persona 3 Reload did so well in the end. And for Yakuza Gaiden, I'm actually surprised at that number. To be honest, I expected it to be like sub 500K, just because you just didn't hear much of it after like a month or two after it released. No one talks about it at all, except for like the few people who played it before 8. So good to see that. I am disappointed at no number for Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, but I guess either maybe that was below 500K, or maybe they just didn't want to reveal for whatever reason. No idea. I just assume it didn't do well enough.
I have a broader point I want to make here too. Especially when you're in like our sphere, we don't think about the Total War series very often. And I know some people almost kind of think of it like a throwaway, like, oh yeah, Sega does that too. Total War is on here twice. Total War 3 Kingdoms has sold more than 3 million, so more than many of the games we talked about. And then Total War Warhammer 3 is above 2 million. Like, these are right up there with a bunch of other Sega franchises here. Like, it's a big franchise for them, for sure. Probably a completely different audience, but that's the broader point I want to make. Capcom has really succeeded at this, and Sega is, it has this success also, where they have obviously their RPG series in Atlas. They have their Sonic games. They have this Total War series, right? Which is like strategy sim, PC audience mostly. And then they also have, of course, their soccer, like the football manager game. And like they have this diverse portfolio. And unfortunately, this is where I bring it back to Square Enix, where Square Enix has sort of been trying to kind of diversify their like genre lineup. Maybe, I don't know if they've been trying to some degree, but I feel like it's something they need to do and haven't really been doing a very good job at it. I don't know. When you see these other companies having like these high selling games in multiple types of genres, and companies like Square Enix, which is right up there with them, like in terms of like name recognition and company size, but it's just they don't have the same variety in their lineups.
Yeah, Square Enix can't shake off that. Like Square Enix definitely has ambitions. Like they don't just want to be the Final Fantasy company. They want to be known for more than that, and to diversify their portfolio. And they've tried their damnedest to try to do other projects, like like when we talked about
Foam Stars.
that year, the Theo Field Chronicle and Dungeon Encounters. Um, and they also have like that new Killer Inn or whatever
Yeah.
that new upcoming game that's like a third person Among Us, I guess is the best way to put it. The new werewolf game, which just looks interesting. I don't know how well it'll do, but like I admire them for trying, but it's just like they're lacking something, and it's a hard, really hard answer
Oh,
to
yeah.
solve. Like, what's the thing that will help them get consistency like Capcom and Sega Atlas? Like, I don't know what that is.
And now this is a little bit less creative and a little bit more business sense, perhaps. But like, if you're Sega and you release a Sonic game, an Atlas game, and a Total War game in the same year, good for you. Like, you're hitting 3 different audiences. But if you're Square Enix and you release a bunch of their games in the same year, that's when you get that sort of like audience cannibalization because it's like the same people playing them.
Yeah.
Not to mention they're releasing like multiple games in the same series. Like just last year, they released a new Saga game and a remake of a Saga game, and the remake sold really well from what we can tell. But it seems like Emerald Beyond didn't do super hot. It's like, should the remake have come out this year, and maybe Emerald Beyond should have gotten another year to get extra polish? Probably. Who knows?
But yeah, but it's also like the numbers are relative too, right? Like the remake of Saga, like um, it's like really great for that release of the game and in that series. But when you're talking about like numbers like we're seeing here with Sega Atlas and also with Capcom, it's nowhere near the numbers that those other games.
That is true,
Uh,
but also going off of what we can see about the Romancing Saga 2 remake, that's probably one of the most successful games that Square Enix has released in the last several years.
yeah, for
Now
sure. Yeah.
that might be damning with faint praise, but it's still true.
But when you're looking at your competitors' numbers, it's like how do you tell your investors and your and internally, like, okay, how do we get these numbers consistently then? Um, good question. The $1 million question, multiple $1 million question.
Yeah, sorry for the tangent, but that when I was putting together this table, that just kind of stuck out to me. Like, man, Sega's
Yeah.
got these different franchises in different genres all selling well, and Capcom obviously has that too. And just kind of that's where my mind wandered. So
Yeah. Well, we'll see where they come out with this multi-year restructuring project that they're doing, and then there's also like other bigger like big Japanese companies who have their own soul searching that they're trying with like Koei Tecmo
yeah, Koei
and their
Tecmo is
AAA game
yep,
studio.
100%. Koei Tecmo is trying to go bigger and better. We'll see how that
Yeah.
works.
We have a couple now available news headlines that Kite put together. And both of these seem pretty interesting. So I threw them in kind of at the end here. The first one I'll list is this is an idler game called Loot of Baal, Baal, Loot of Baal. It's now available from Steam. And this reminds me of like, I'm sure it never went away, but it reminds me of like a bygone era where this is a game that truly is an idler. It sits PC only, it sits on your desktop and like off to the side in a sidebar that you can kind of like engage with every once in a while uh, to progress slowly as like a clicker game. And it just keeps like running in the background, like while you focus on other things. So I just thought that was an interesting game to kind of highlight. It's an idle game nested right on your screen's sidebar. Multitask your way to glory by sending your hireling crew out to explore, fight demons, collect other loot while you focus on other things. So like if you're at your PC doing non-gaming stuff and you just want this running in the background all the time, like okay, like I'm not sure what the audience is, but I'm glad it exists. Just a fun concept for a game, and it's got some fun art. And even like the official like screenshots for it show like here's a Windows desktop with some random icons on the taskbar with this game running on the side or on the bottom. So just a fun game that I figured I'd highlight.
There's a
If
very,
you're
very
looking at
recent
it.
update to this game. In terms of like when I tried to access the Steam page, it's like I couldn't access it, but you can still access the forums and people are talking about like, why it was delisted. And it might be like they might have like violated like a DMCA sort of deal where they stole assets from Diablo 2. um
I did not know that.
these are unverified claims, like, but that might have been the reason why it's delisted. There's talk about it in the Steam discussion forums for it because even though there's a game delisted, you can still access the Steam forums, even though you can't access the store page. So there's some talk about that there. Like I said, these are alleged. These have been unverified claims, but that's the current discussion around why it's delisted. So because I was wondering why I couldn't access the page.
Yeah. So it looks like Kite put up this news post on the 17th, so a few days ago. But yeah, it's all right. Sorry that I didn't catch that. I didn't try hitting the
It's okay.
hyperlink.
I didn't know either until now.
I'm really quickly going through the forums, and posts on the forums mention that there is a Discord, and apparently in the Discord, the developers say they expect the game to come back. There must be just some legal or technical thing that's just preventing them from selling it right now. I don't know. This is all in real time. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah. So apparently, like there might be like some sound effects, maybe that sound eerily close to Diablo 2, let's say.
All right.
So we'll see. We'll see. Developing story
So
on this one.
all right. So Loot of Baal looks interesting, but it also looks like it might just be almost like an asset
You
flip.
cannot buy it right now.
Oops. Yeah. But then I guess that might lead us into the other one. Path of the Abyss. This is a solo indie developer, Suzuki Suzuzo, has released the full version of Path of the Abyss. This is like a monochromatic first-person dungeon crawler, blobber, so to speak. And it's just got a really cool. Like we have some screenshots here on the news post for this. It reminds me a little bit of World of Horror, but the art style is not quite as grainy. It doesn't have that. It's not going for that Macintosh look, but it's going for that um, uh, almost Junji Ito-ish look, monochromatic with some flashes of like red and purples, first-person perspective dungeon crawler. So thought this looked pretty interesting, and it's also now available on Steam. This store page I can still access. It's $7.
Yeah, it's
Reviews are mostly positive.
Yeah, it's a pretty unconventional battle system. While it's turn-based, it seems like your skills are done like in a 3x3 like panel, and like you have to like make a formation of your skills on when you want to like fire them off in the middle of combat. It seems pretty unconventional. I've heard about this game before from a friend, but I didn't know much about it because it was released without like English support, or like it was released, but it was had like machine translated English, but then eventually I was added like a more formal English translation, as far as I know. Hey, since you're on the store page, Steam store page for this game, Brian, I want you to read the mature content description. How do the developers describe the mature content in this game?
Where do I how Oh, there we go. Oh, there we go. A mature content description. I had to scroll down a little bit. The developers describe the content like this: some monsters have exposed breasts. There you
Thank
go.
you. Thank you.
So rated M. Don't buy this if you're a minor. Don't want to see a breast. Here's one that I normally wouldn't cover because it's specifically talking about a China release in July, but I covered it because it kind of baffled us back when we talked about this game a few months ago. That is, I don't even know how to introduce it. Blue Protocol / Star Resonance. We talked about how Blue Protocol was, released in Japan. It was going to be published by Amazon in the West. It died. It was somehow transferred over to Tencent, who was doing their own thing that decided to call it Star Resonance. It's coming back in the West as Blue Protocol Star Resonance. Well, it's releasing in July in China just under the name Star Resonance. So just the saga of this game, what it is, what it isn't, still is kind of baffling, but it'll be playable in at least one new region of the world starting next month, but not under the Blue Protocol name, under the Star Resonance name. So I don't know what that means, but there you go.
Since we're on the topic too, I believe the Final Fantasy 14 mobile has also recently been released in China, just this past week. I saw some screenshots going around, and I even have a friend who went through the hurdle of, making like a WeChat account to kind of check it out, and seeing what that's all about. It is it's going. That has released over in China.
I saw some people hoping that the recent live letter for 14 might talk about it, but it didn't. So as far as I know, the mobile client outside of being released in China, we don't really have any other updates for in terms of a potential wider release. And then this last one's a bit interesting. Normally, we try to leave off as our last news toast about like what we're looking forward to, whether it's a new streaming presentation or anything like that. And what we have is that Capcom was going to have one of their Capcom Presents Capcom Spotlight showcases for Monster Hunter Wilds. We were expecting this to be the day that we got all the details for dates and updates for Monster Hunter Wilds Title Update 2, which they already said I think was coming this month, but we didn't have a date. And obviously this month is wrapping up. However, Gamatsu isn't the one that found this, I don't believe. I think it was someone on our Monster Hunter, but the reporting on it is that according to a PlayStation website, a newly added like graphic block showing like the release highlights was inadvertently shown, like I don't know, like a bunch of thumbnails with some little captions for it. That Title Update 2 is coming on June 30th. It's going to introduce two monsters. I used to have these listed here.
It's had two fan favorite monsters, including Chris. So I mean, we
Chris,
knew,
that's it.
yeah, we knew about Laggy because it was
Okay.
teased previously in like in the last trailer, title update trailer at the end of it. We don't know about the other monster they're talking about, so it does not reveal that. We do know that they're gonna release Arch Tempered Uthduna. They've been gradually releasing Arch Tempered fights of monsters already in the game. They're finally including the layered weapons feature, which probably should have launched in the game, but it's basically uh, replacing the appearance of your weapon with another weapon's appearance while keep retaining its stats. So, obviously a favorite feature, especially because the weapon designs of this game are a step up from base world. So, people wanted that for a really long time. And obviously they're showing off more new like costumes and stuff like that whenever they show this reveal at the Capcom Spotlight event later this week. June 26th at 3 p.m. Pacific, alongside the Monster Hunter Wilds title update. They're also going to have like Pragmata there, I believe, and other titles. I forgot exactly what else. Street Fighter, I imagine. And yeah.
Yeah, so almost certainly the date was going to be shown at the event, but I believe they said June. I don't think it was just summer. I believe they explicitly said this month. So it was always going to be within a short window of days. But yep, on the 30th.
Yeah, Resident Evil Requiem, Pragmata, Wilds, and Street Fighter 6. Those are the games that they said will be in that Capcom Spotlight.
I did notice, obviously Wilds is kind of not quite in the headlines, but it's been getting reviewed and critically for frequent updates that are like not being able to address its bevy of performance issues.
Yeah,
And being reflected in recent reviews on Steam and elsewhere. And then one other thing that I saw people on Reddit, and Reddit's not always the most rational places to go, but the way that they were saying was kind of like chickens coming home to roost, and a true admonishment of the state of the game is that more people are live playing World on Steam than Wilds at this point, which I'm sure Capcom in some respects will like, oh, we published that game too. We're happy to have them play that, but I don't know if that's something they expected or wanted, is to have such a lingering play base on Worlds and not over to Wilds.
It's definitely an interesting case where like there was complaints about Wilds at launch, obviously, and like my review, even though I did enjoy Wilds, I did have my fair share of complaints about the state of the game. But I've absolutely been noticing like a sort of like tide change for how people talk about the game. And people are frustrated. Like one thing I just reposted like earlier was people have been like looking at, okay, so it's not just the performance issues, which obviously the way the game performs is completely unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. Just no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But people have been looking at the release time frame for like content drops, and Wilds is lagging behind both World and Rise, which now granted with Rise, that game was straight up unfinished at launch. Anyone that played Rise at launch can agree with that assessment because it was true. And yet it's lagging behind even that. And it's like, okay, so one of the major complaints that people have had has been the performance that hasn't been fixed. Another major complaint is that there wasn't anything to do at endgame, and because of how streamlined the game is, getting to endgame is so much quicker. That hasn't been fixed. It's like Capcom needs to maybe say or do something, because I think this is going to have an impact on whether or not people are even going to be willing to come back for the eventual expansion.
I uninstalled Wilds the other day. I was like, I'm not. I plan on playing this anytime soon, and it seems like the state of the PC port or
It's
version of
getting
that game is a
worse.
fucking mess. Yeah,
Yeah.
apparently it's been getting worse. I remember there was like one update that like they said people should really recompile their shaders, and they had like a step by step like kind of very technical way of like forcing the game to force recompiling shaders. I'm like 99% of the average person of your player base is not going to do this. There's like
Yeah.
a very unacceptable like messaging to your consumers on like you should do that yourselves. Like you should like force everyone to do that if you're gonna do that, and that should be automated and not
Yeah.
like expecting people to go to your social media and click on this post to do
Yeah.
that. That's stupid.
One thing I want to say is that, like, when Dragon's Dogma 2 came out last year, obviously the major point of contention, well, one of the major points of contention, but the biggest one was the performance. But compared to Monster Hunter, that feels like it performs well, because like Monster Hunter, no matter where you're in the game or what you're doing, there's going to be stuttering issues on PC. And a lot of people seem to think that it's like Capcom pulling the same bullshit they did with Resident Evil 8 before they got called out, where it's like, is it the anti-tamper causing issues? Because RE framework is like pretty much required to get rid of a bunch of the stutters on the PC version of Wilds, and that's like straight up avoiding a bunch of those anti-tamper checks. So
And like, even besides that too, like someone was like, okay, let's test this out. I'll boot this game right up. It took them 3 minutes to boot up the game, like for it to even actually like get to like the screen that's starting to like boot up the game. It took 3 minutes. Like, what the fuck are we doing, dude?
Well, when
What the
I
fuck?
returned for Title Update 1, I was just getting I think Adam was watching me play. I was just getting crashes. And apparently the crashes were unique originally to the newest series of graphics cards
yeah,
from Nvidia, but then like they got worse and they started affecting any Nvidia graphics card, and that's what affected me. And like people were just saying like no, like people were like on the our Monster Hunter saying like which drivers get this ones from like late
Jesus.
2023 or whatever. Like, and then I've never really had to worry about rolling back my drivers to play a game. That was the one time I'm like, all right, let me do a clean driver install. And I know this sounds dumb because people do this all the time, but this is the one time where it's like, if I want to play this game, I cannot unless I go to Nvidia's website, and because Capcom didn't offer any support.
yeah,
And
and to be clear, like part of these issues might also be down to the fact that NVIDIA drivers have been a complete total clusterfuck ever since the 5000 series launched in January. So it's like there might be some correlation there. It might not just be Capcom, but a lot of it is.
yeah,
So
Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully people's voices are heard and they directly start making good on that ASAP. This is like unacceptable. Like it's I don't regret playing that game. I had my fun with that game, but I've my opinion of that game is gradually worsening the other day because of the way they're handling this situation.
and I do want to go back to like I don't want to poo-poo on this. Like I do want
Yeah,
to go back to
push
title
it on.
update too, but it's just like it's hard for me to be excited about it because like right now I'm like I haven't booted up Monster Hunter Wilds in a while. Is it gonna even boot? I don't know. And if it does boot, is it gonna crash as soon as I try to hunt a monster? I just don't know.
The fact that I have to like consider like maybe I shouldn't play this until they get all their shit sorted out. Like it shouldn't even be a thing. Like
Mhm.
it's like it's a stupid situation of like because
maybe things will be better with the expansion, because at least in terms of content, I Rides wasn't very good. But then Sunbreak, through the entire life of that expansion, they delivered. So maybe hopefully that'll happen this time. I'm not
yeah,
expecting it, but
burning $70 to be like, well, maybe the expansion will be better doesn't feel great. So
yeah.
they need to figure it out because this is stupid. I'm not giving them the maybe the expansion will fix everything pass. It should be you know.
Oh, yeah, to be clear, I'm not saying that to defend them. I'm just saying like hopefully people will eventually get something that's yeah, you know what I mean. Ugh.
Yeah, and well, the showcase will be on June 26th, like Josh said, giving us all the final details of Title Update 2, as well as games like Pragmata and Street Fighter. And that was our last headline for this episode. So kind of back to normalcy in terms of the Tetracast content. Looking ahead to next week, I think we'll be able to talk about a few different things. I think the System Shock 2 remaster, we've had a few people interested in that ever since Night Dive did excellent with the first remaster. I know they're kind of different. We talked about one's a remake, one's a remaster, etc. We'll be able to talk about that next week. We kind of, James and Josh kind of insinuated all the mobile gacha releases, including Persona 5, the Phantom X. We'll be releasing in a few days, and a few others that I am not aware of, or at least knowledgeable
Or
on.
that's
We'll be
okay.
releasing
You're
over the next
good.
week.
You don't have to know about them.
Yeah,
That's all right.
yeah, you'll carry us. So that'll be wrapping up the month of June as we go into official summer and into July. So look forward to that next week. Remember, we have all of those reviews and previews, Raidou Remastered, Ratatan, the Branching Path or Daemon X Machina, and then all the Digimon stuff, the Digimon preview, the Digimon interview for Digimon Story Time Stranger, all up on the site, rpgsite.net. If you want to filter out the news, just hit that article link and it should take you there. You can find RPG Site on all the social media networks. Just search for RPG Space Site and you should be able to find us. Join our Discord, discord.gg/RPG Site. If you listen to this podcast, whether you listen to it on the site or whatever podcast service of choice, leave us a like, leave us a rating. If you made it here to the end, we thank you so much for listening, as you always do, and commenting and engaging on whenever we have a social post. And we'll be back next week with another episode of the Tetracast. So until you hear from us next time, stay safe, take care, and we'll talk to you later.